Someone is playing a deadly game.
It all began with a scream over 911.
Someone who's seen one too many scary movies. Now he's taken his love of fear.
Hello?
Hello, Sydney.
One step too far.
I want to play a game.
Dun, dun, dun.
I couldn't wait to get out from under there. I don't know how Ghostface does that shit, you know.
Well, especially running around and stuff like that, too.
There's the weirdest looking mask when I take it off. It's like
It's so flat.
it's been in
No,
packaging.
my
I don't know
knife.
how to fix that. I feel like people look more cool when they like take their mask off, and this just doesn't do it for me.
That's why I got this OG one.
I do have that one as well, and I was like, do I use it? Do I not? And it's just because this already has a hood, I didn't want to put another hood on underneath. Welcome everybody to Class Horrorcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of horror and explore the most iconic franchises in the genre. Today we're going to be discussing the classic horror movie series that made us all afraid to answer the phone, the Scream franchise. Released in 1996, the first Scream movie brought a fresh take on the genre. It was directed by the legendary Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. The film follows a group of teenagers who become the target of a masked killer known as Ghostface. With its blend of self-aware humour and clever use of horror movie tropes, Scream quickly became the sensation and revitalised the horror genre in the late 90s. Over the next decade, it spawned multiple sequels. Each movie continued the tradition of the first film, offering thrilling and suspenseful stories while keeping the audiences guessing about the true identity of the killer. Along the way, it also spawned a TV series which kept the spirit of the movies alive for those new generation of horror fans. Join us as we delve into the world of Scream, exploring iconic characters, memorable moments, and lasting legacy of the classic horror franchise. So grab your phone, lock your doors, and get ready to scream.
Yeah, you're gonna love this one. It's a Scream, baby.
I like that.
Welcome. Yeah, I'm excited for this. If you don't know me by now, I'm Tomcat, a.k.a. Tom Thompson from Strange Brew Podcast. And this is going to be a fun, deep dive. I've been a fan of these movies since I was like, I don't know, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah,
I'll tell a
same.
story about that.
Can you remember the first time that you saw Scream?
I'm trying to think. I'll tell a little story for everybody. I was introduced to horror movies at a young age by Nightmare on Elm Street, the original Nightmare on Elm Street. When I was like 8 years old, my brother's friend was from a very broken home, and they could do whatever they want, watch whatever they want. And I watched Nightmare on Elm Street, kind of like dive myself into this. And I remember probably watching Scream 1 at like 9, maybe even 8 with a friend. Really enjoying it. I got obsessed with it. And I had a big box of horror movies, VHSs, okay? I was a disturbed child, and, I was causing havoc on my home to my parents, and they took away my horror movies because they thought that I was going to be suicidal because of it. And it made me more angry when they did it. And I had, like, all 3 original VHSs. I don't really know where they ended up or what happened to them or whatever, right? But I've been a massive fan of this franchise as every one I've enjoyed. There's not one that I didn't like.
Not to get too deep into that, because obviously we want to talk about the movies and what we think of them and the fun aspect of it. But do you think that that argument of horror movies intensify or cause violence or anything? Do you think that there's any weight to that argument?
I think for maybe someone who's super mentally unstable, maybe my behavior and acting out wasn't because of horror movies. I enjoyed horror movies, and the thing is, like, it gave me some sort of, like, I don't know. I just always enjoyed the scarier aspects of life, and I always enjoyed being spooked out. And I always, like, me and my friends always talk about, like, being scared where there's no consequences. It's not like you're doing a cliff dive or jumping out of an airplane where there could be a consequence. It's being scared within your own home. And we really enjoyed I don't think it, I could contribute maybe some hip hop music, maybe some horror movies. At a too young of age, could do some damage to some kids that maybe are from broken homes and have seen violence. But if you understand, it's just a movie. And even as a young kid, I understood that, but I really enjoyed it. And I was a big loser and loved this stuff. And I think I may have said this in your podcast before, but like I used to draw like pictures at a very young age of like Jason and like holding a machete and there'd be body parts all around him. I'm sure if you gave it to a psychiatrist, they'd probably be like, this kid's mentally ill. But I used to like, I remember I had this, I somewhere probably do have it still, where I still love vampire movies. It's hence why we talked about vampire movies on your podcast. But I had like, it was like a guy standing up with a sword, a sword in his hand. And then there was just like cut up body parts all around him, just blood soaked in the ground. It looked like a kid drew it, but I can draw fairly well. So it was like,
you see,
I've always been into this shit.
Yeah, for me, like, I think, like, even take both of us, for example, I think for the most part, I know some people will probably try and be funny and disagree, but for the most part, like, we're quite well-adjusted human beings. And, like,
yes,
I think for a lot of people, it's, like, I'm obsessed with horror movies. I'm obsessed with movies like Scream. Yes, it is about people, teens fucking going on massacres and stuff, but I don't feel like I want to go out and stab someone to death or anything. I just enjoy.
No, I just enjoy. I'm obsessed with horror movies. So in preparation for this whole week, I've watched all of the Scream movies within the matter of a week, but I've went back to certain ones twice. Actually, we're wearing the masks at the beginning. I love this. I want to get the whole costume. I've always had a Scream mask somewhere in my life. And I feel like, I don't know if this is the one I've had forever. It's a little scuffed, but it looks fairly new. Which I don't remember the last time I bought a ghost face mask, but this is like the OG one, which is pretty cool. And then I also have setup, which is fairly cool. Chelsea, my fiance, got this for my birthday, is the script for Scream, and it's all signed with everybody's signature. It's pretty cool.
I like that.
And there's like, and maybe later we'll flip through it because it is very to the T of the movie. Look, enough is enough. You've had your fun. Now you better leave me alone or else. Or else what? Clothes in on her face, her mind thinking, calculating. My boyfriend will be here any second, and he's pissed when I tell him. Like that whole beginning with Casey. It's like, my boyfriend's big and strong, and it's just like, did you just say you didn't have a boyfriend? Like,
I think I have that mask you have. It's like behind the camera on the wall. It's right beside my if anyone's followed me on Instagram for a long time, I might actually post it up again. I have the original Stab movie poster framed. And I have that over there on the wall. And like obviously that was one of my first, I think, horror-related tattoos. Was when I got
that's so
Ghostface
cool
tattooed in there, and I feel
I
like
love your sleeve. I want to get like that.
I really should have gotten something bigger because Scream was such a huge part in, like, I think my journey with movies and stuff. From a young age, and then more recently, I had gotten. I'm so bad at showing shit on camera, man.
I know it's hard.
That fucking the Stab like film clapper thing.
The clapper.
I only got the whatever the fuck that. What's that fucking thing called? Where you like?
I don't even actually. Surprisingly, I'm obsessed with movies, and I don't really know what that's called.
And I wouldn't mind. I have one right there.
That's funny. That's cool.
I have one right there.
That's cool, and that's why like I have so much stuff for the podcast studio that I switch out horror stuff and stuff like that all the time, and I feel like it's one day it's gonna accumulate a lot.
Do you know what would be great?
So
could you imagine if we could, if I was in Canada and we could buy like, I don't know, like a unit or something and have it done in like a studio? I know. Maybe you should move to Canada. I'd love to move to Canada. Wait till wait till we kick Homeboy out for treason, and we'll get that going. So I've been obsessed with these movies. I have something embarrassing to say. When I was younger, we've talked about this before, where I would like search up like the Freddy versus Jason like website, because like back in the early days of the internet, it used to kind of be
the websites were catered towards like people going towards it, and there'd be like maybe like a spooky outlay, things you could play, clips from the movie, or whatever, right? And I went to, I think it was on the main site for Scream, and I used to sit there and listen to the sound clips from the movies on my computer when I was like 11. Like they would have stuff like this.
You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish, understand? Yeah.
That yeah, it's like he's like I'm gonna fucking freak out.
I can't knock that because I done the exact same kind of thing, and like I remember one of the first times we got a printer in the house, and like I used to try and print off like these really shitty, crude like artwork things.
That's funny.
For Scream, for like I don't know, like the VHS artwork or fucking the shitty poster, and like I used to print it and it was like terrible quality. It wasn't even the size of the A4 sheet. It would be like,
oh, that's so funny.
The A4, and then I'd be like, wow, amazing, that's so cool, I'm gonna cut that out.
Sounds like me when I used to print off pictures of Hillary Duff.
Okay,
I don't know why. When I got a printer, I fucking, I don't give a shit about admitting this stuff. I'm like 10 years old. I am I would like the whatever. There are certain movies like the one where she was in the Casper movie, and like I just had such a big crush on Hillary Duff. I'm a young kid, whatever, and I printed out a bunch of pictures, not even to whack off to them or anything like that, just to like I thought she was really pretty. I would have found something a little better to whack off to, but that's a weird thing that I don't mind admitting, but it does show that I was a little creep. Where I printed off some pictures of the Olsen twins too, and I'd be like, "You were so pretty." I even wrote a letter to the Olsen twins, and I wrote it in the bathroom, which is fucking weird. When I was like taking a shit or something, I was like 11, and for everyone, just a tidbit of information before we get into the Scream stuff, and I wrote it on like a this like X-Men book. That was like a hardcover, and I pressed really hard, and you could see, I could still read what I wrote years later on this book, and it was so embarrassing. Yeah.
I'm sure if I really thought about it, I have like quite a few of those stories, I would say.
So I got coffee with whiskey just in case for this one. I was obsessed. Ooh, I actually like that one. That is that iced tea or something?
It's like some sort of tropical flavor, sparkling water.
Yeah. You're not an alcoholic like I am, so luckily.
I was gonna drink, and then I was like, no, I won't, because it's like super early where Tom is, and you know, it's just weird. I'm drinking. It's like, no, I won't.
How many times? There's been times where I got up at like 10 and had like a fucking drink of whiskey, which is so bad. True. But it's just for an episode, right? For jokes and to get loosened up a bit. Do you want to bring up who I met?
Sure. Something I didn't know until like an hour ago. Yeah.
So I met Neve Campbell. Pretty cool. This was... no, something no, I'm not even gonna mention it. It's just like I was on drugs when I went to this thing. But I went to the Fan Expo. Mike Tyson was there. I knew that Neve Campbell was showing up. So pretty cool. I'd never been to something like this before. I dragged Chelsea along with me. And so here's the picture. I gotta explain something about this. So bring up our cameras back up. So for all the audio listeners, it is a picture of Neve Campbell leaned over with her cleavage showing. Very provocative, sexy photo. And so I in retrospect, really wish that I picked out a Scream photo. It would have been, in my opinion, slightly cooler. I don't know why I went with the sexy photo. I was young. And so I walked up and I was super nervous. The first time I've meet anyone famous kind of thing, right? And I said to Chelsea, I was like, do you care if I like call her pretty? And then I went up and I was like, hey, I really liked you in Scream. I love all those movies. You look really good. You look really good right now. And it's so embarrassing. And then of course I like pull up the picture and it's just like she's probably like this weird fucking horny little Canadian boy.
Yeah, but at the same time though, maybe she wasn't, because I wonder how many of those, like when you're somebody like her, I wonder how many interactions like that she has on a yearly basis with people who just even till nowadays, like I can only imagine that there's probably shit tons of dudes who come up like worse than that. And the flip side of that is apparently
I was so nervous.
Skeet Ulrich gets that a lot with like kind of, you know, those like probably late 30s, early 40s.
Oh,
like,
really?
Chicks that don't have dudes, or like their life didn't turn out like they wanted to, and like they're obsessed with horror movies and they're like trying to like hit on him and whatever. Because he's quite a good looking dude even now. Like he's what, like in his 40s or whatever.
Yeah, he looks like Johnny Depp in Pretty Baby, or not Pretty Baby. What's that? Is that what it's called? That's that fucking creepy ass fucking Brooke Shields movie. What is it? That Johnny Depp movie. It's something baby.
I have no idea what you're
Crybaby. Or he's like
Pretty Baby.
When he what?
When you said Pretty Baby.
That's a fucked up film. I've never seen it, but I've heard about it. Nobody looked that up because the FBI might knock on your door. Brooke Shields was in the movie Naked at 11. Shows the seediness of Hollywood, and it's about like a brothel. And it's a fucked up movie. I've heard like not folklore, but like weird stuff about the Hollywood elite when I dug into stuff like that for episodes, and it's very strange. But I think it's Crybaby. You know where you've seen that picture where Johnny Depp has like the greaser hair and the leather jacket?
Yeah.
That's what kind of like Skeet Ulrich looks like.
A lot of people, I think, I was listening to some interviews and the commentary tracks with Wes Craven, and he talks about that a lot of people thought it was like obviously Johnny Depp was in Nightmare on Elm Street, which was also, you know, done by Wes Craven, and a lot of people thought him casting Skeet was like a nod to Johnny Depp being in Nightmare on Elm Street, and it was like, oh, I'm going to give him like the same career or whatever that I gave Johnny Depp.
Who names their kid Skeet? Okay. Who named did they know he was going to be an actor? Like, how do you name your kid Skeet? And for everybody, Skeet, it means come. Okay? I didn't know that as a kid when they did that song, but now I know. But
that's all I think of when I hear that as well.
I hope this gives no one a seizure, because I have like, I want to do my light like a cop light, because considering like cops always seem to show up in these films. But what do you want to get into first? Because there's so many things. It's pretty cool for all the audio listeners in the video. I have the movie playing, the original, the first one, beside me, which is kind of cool. So I'll be able to pick at things in my head when I'm watching through it. But
you know what I always wanted to do here in the center, where there's like nothing? I always wanted to have an old school TV with the video player, and then whatever movie we talk about could have like the tape playing, and it'd be like that shitty grainy look.
That's a good idea. We should do that. You should try to set that up, because obviously there's stuff that harkens back to other shit, but like I think it'd be worth it to talk about The Ring and some movies like that where it'd be kind of cool, because I haven't seen that movie in years. But this is a Scream episode, so you know the one main question: what's your favorite scary movie? Honestly, this is probably one of my favorites.
And I would say so on this original trilogy. I'm not knocking. Obviously, this episode is solely about that original trilogy. So
which we'll get to the new stuff.
Yeah,
later.
like if I'm referencing that, it's not that I'm discrediting or like ignoring the other ones. It's just that's going to be a completely separate episode. But yeah, I would definitely say this original trilogy is up there in like my top 10 things that I've watched, rewatched, love, always show people and tell people about. You know, if it's someone who's not a horror fan, I'm like, oh, you want something to like get into horror, but it's not really horror and kind of scary, and you'll probably be interested. Scream.
It's probably one of my favorite. I was obsessed with Wes Craven when I was a kid. I've told you this before. I wanted to be a director, so he inspired me in a lot of ways, and I loved A Nightmare on Elm Street. Loved all the Scream movies, which he doesn't write, but the the directorial skills that he has to be able to get these certain shots and the way that he wants it laid out makes these movies what they are. And I love People Under the Stairs. There's even like some of the weirder ones I still enjoy, but like I've specifically Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, really, like, I was obsessed with these movies. I would watch them over and over and over again. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the Scream movies. And literally when I went back, because it's maybe been about a year since last Halloween or something where I watched at least the first 2 or something like that, I can literally go back and watch these over and over again and not get sick of it, which is crazy.
When you think about it, like, you know, that they're like, they've been out for so long, and like we've both, just between the two of us, have watched them like in excess of probably hundreds of times, and the fact that you can still watch them again, like I got so excited the last week looking at all. Me
too. I really enjoyed Scream too, man. Oh my god.
Like, and it's actually another fun thing, and maybe you'll come on and do it with me. I had him on before, but the guy who edited the original trilogy, Patrick Lussier, who done he done basically all the Wes Craven stuff. Yeah. I had him on the show about a year ago, and I'm gonna have him back on again. So maybe we jump on the episode so we can talk solely about Scream. We
should get Skeet Ulrich. I feel like we could get him. I feel
you know
like
who's apparently quite accessible, which is kind of shocking, is Matthew Lillard.
We should I love Matthew Lillard. Like, love that dude. I love all the shit that he's in. Every movie. I mean, fucking like the Scooby-Doo movie he's in.
Yeah, so
it's just, he's just that, like, there's this iconic kind of comedy, like 13 Ghosts. I don't care what people say about the movie. It's entertaining for what it is.
Love it.
There's all these stuff that's coming because me and Aaron are such fucking massive horror fans. So let's get into, do you want to bring it into like some of the fold of like how this kind of got started? And another thing, Williamson's script.
I'm going to say something kind of, maybe some people will find this controversial, but in my opinion at least, I would rate a director like Wes Craven as, well, a lot of people do, as like one of the best horror directors of all time, but I rate him even over like people like John Carpenter.
Me too. I liked Halloween and like in The Fog and all these different movies that John Carpenter did. I'm not a huge fan of The Fog though; it's kind of boring, controversial. But I rewatched The Fog recently and I was like, it's like not that great.
Honestly, I feel like if like the Halloween fans will probably come for me now. But don't get me wrong. I have fucking the Halloween tree thing tattooed here. I have Michael Myers tattooed on my arm. It's not that I look at all the fucking Halloween stuff I have in the background. It's not that I don't like Halloween, but I can't help but feel like if we were to do John Carpenter versus Wes Craven, while I understand like the importance of Halloween and Michael Myers as a character to the genre, how many times did Wes Craven have absolute fucking bangers and basically revitalize the entire horror genre multiple times? Like, how can you revitalize the genre and then it goes stale again, and then like the following decade do it again with something completely fresh? Like,
R.I.P. And I wish I could have met him. It is cool when we do our zombie episode that I feel like should come this year. You know who else I met? I got a Creep Show picture signed. I met George A. Romero before he died. Yeah, which is crazy. Let's bring it in. I love Matthew Lillard. It's just, see his character in this, and we'll talk about it when we really get to I feel like we got to deconstruct it a bit, talk about the main thing. Like, let's get into kind of how this got put into place, and then we can kind of break down some of the characters, at least of the first one. Then we'll go through the second one. Oh yeah, this is crazy.
Like a big thing is, so for anybody listening to audio only, some of the aspects of this episode might be a little bit harder to follow. We will post all this stuff on our socials and maybe on our website and stuff as well, but there's going to be a lot of imagery brought up on screen and different things we're going to be like talking specifically about. So you guys should definitely check out both of our YouTube channels for the video version of this episode.
Yes.
Like the mask is such an iconic thing now. Like, and as you can see there was so many variations of like some of that shit. It's just like, I can't imagine a world where that ever would have been a thing.
No, and for like, if you guys don't know, look up the like original Scream Ghostface designs, and a lot of them were like weird zombie faces, almost reminiscent of especially the one. It reminds me of Dr. Satan from fucking Rob Zombie, like the open mouth kind of design. Especially the weird one. Like I think for a monster design, it would be cool. Like the one, there's the two bottom ones, and the one with his kind of like his eyes are rolled back in his head, with the mouth open. Cool design for a monster in a movie, but not for what this needed to be.
Yeah, like when I look at those concepts there, where you have the like, what is it? There's 12 images or whatever, all in one picture. When I look at each of them, I'm like, was this designed to be for some sort of monster, or was that supposed to be a mask that a human would wear? Because like,
I know, which I never understood too. Like the one that's solo by itself, the one with the teeth. It looks like something from Resident Evil.
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah, it's like fucking Nemesis mixed with something else.
The other one is close though. The one with the design looks shitty
Yes.
after they actually did it, but it's close to what they were doing. Do you wanna get in the mask thing, or do you want to bring this back up after we talk about Kevin Williamson and how he was like laid dormant for a while, and then his script got really picked up?
Yeah, if you want to dive into that, we can, and then we can swing back around. I have some other things.
Okay, because like the whole thing, right, he wasn't doing much, and then he had this concept, this idea, and then he like wrote it out and like gave himself like a couple days. I think he like, didn't he go away to a cabin or some shit, and he like, or some secluded place?
Yeah, and it's crazy because like since then, like since that point, he became like, I don't want to say an overnight sensation. I don't want to knock, because I know he spent, a lot of time working on his craft, but he, I think he was working on that script. What was it? Killing Mrs. Tingle or whatever it was.
Yeah,
and that was like his big thing that he was trying to push, and like, I think in a way, Scream was kind of a little bit of an afterthought for him. At least it was all.
Weird.
He had, I think he read a magazine at the time called Turning Point, and they had a piece about the Gainesville Ripper or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Danny Rolling.
And then he wrote a loose script that was titled Scary Movie, funny enough.
Yeah, let me if people don't know. So what I heard is he was babysitting. He was house sitting at his buddy's house, and he doesn't normally, I guess, watch the news. And then a whole thing came up, and this will eventually go on Patreon, because all the Strange Ones episodes are eventually being transferred over to Patreon. So all the people that love those episodes of me and Juan, they'll be on Patreon. There will be episodes still coming with Juan. Me and him just did one recently, but we discussed Danny Rolling because he was from Florida, and Daniel Harold Rolling, known as the Gainesville Ripper, was an American serial killer who he murdered 5 students in Gainesville, Florida, over 4 days in August 1990. Rolling later confessed to raping several of his victims, committing a triple homicide in his home city of Shreveport, Louisiana. And attempted to murder his father in May 1990. In total, Rolling confessed to killing 8 people. He was sentenced to death for the 5 Gainesville murders in 1994 and was executed by lethal injection in 2006. And he's a fucking maniac. Like, he tried to kill his own father. I think he tried to shoot him with a shotgun or something. We covered it. I've covered so many serial killers on Strange Brew that I can't keep them all in my head. But hey, did you ever hear about Danny Rolling before this stuff, or?
Oh yeah, 100%. But I didn't really know too much of the specifics. I always heard of like the Gainesville Ripper or whatever it was called. I never even knew his name.
Which is a creepy name. Yeah.
And I always kind of knew that it was sort of loosely based off of that idea.
Yeah.
Which I always find fascinating, like that somebody can be that creative that like you can just hear, because I feel like we all consume like lots of true crime and lots of weird stories, but like I don't know if I ever to the point where my creative brain takes over and go, I can write an 80-page script based off of this one little idea.
I I'm not gonna ever, I don't know, shelve myself and say that I can't do something. So when Chelsea got me the script for Scream, I want to go through it, read it, see how it's done, and I actually would love to take a class, even if it's for a day or two, about how to do a screenplay, because I would like to write one day. And
Same.
I think that, and that's why, hopefully there's one day where maybe we can do this together and develop something that, and sit down for hours on end and just really pump out ideas, because between me and you never know, we could be 40 years old and we could pump out this crazy script and someone might end up buying it.
Do you know what the wild part is?
Because this happens.
To do stuff like this, though, you don't even have to go to the extent where it's like, oh, Paramount might just randomly discover you and reach out and be like, hey, want to be new directors? Like, there's guys that I've followed on YouTube. Like, I've mentioned him a few times. He's a Canadian, Dave McRae, and he does a lot of horror talks, like live streams. It's kind of like a radio show on YouTube kind of a thing. And he's a big fan of Black Christmas, and obviously that's a Canadian horror movie, and he wanted to continue like the original story. So him and a friend came up with this whole script, got some concept art and put it out there and started like posting on different places. It got a bit of traction. They started a Indiegogo or a GoFundMe or whatever, and they raised $80,000 and shot this amazing 45-minute like kind of short feature thing, and now they're doing a sequel to it.
See, and I have crazy idea. With all my knowledge of serial killers and stuff like that, I do think it's a possibility, and I do think as our shows grow, there might be more of a demand for the fans to be like, hey, see what you we're starting to film stuff, like even just paranormal stuff of me and Billy using Ouija boards in a graveyard and told us to die, stuff like that. It was great. But it is crazy because Kevin Williamson wasn't doing that well. This script kind of like rocketed him off. And the fact that he sat there and he's like, he called his friend because he was actually scared, supposedly, of like the Danny Rolling thing, like kind of creeped out because it wasn't far from where he was. And he called his friend and they were talking and it got into this conversation.
What's your favorite scary movie?
They talked about what their favorite scary movie was, and then he got this idea, essentially, from what I've really heard, which is so cool.
It's crazy that it spawned such an iconic franchise characters, actually, not just the bad guy. Like, even the heroes as well are so iconic now in horror.
Yeah, Dewey eating ice cream, that's a part of that. He's like... his character alone, and I don't know. I want you to kind of direct where you want to go with this. But so, and then people are do you want to get in the bidding war?
Yeah, like there was, and apparently it was kind of a huge thing, and I want to say that the bidding war ended over the course of a weekend. A deal had been closed on like a Saturday night or something like that, or a Saturday evening, which wasn't like the done thing. And then on Monday, when all the studios were back to work and whatever, and they went back to working on this like bidding war, and it was like, oh no, that's already been sold. And like,
so crazy.
What the fuck? Like, how did that? And apparently Bob Weinstein was just like dead nuts on like, I need to get this, so I'm willing to do whatever. And like, I don't know specifics. I'm sure there's a lot of I don't know, like brown envelopes or whatever, or like little bonuses and things that are added on for people, when you sell a script. You often hear things where it's like, oh, it was bought for $1 million. I'm sure there was maybe more money given out here, there, and whatever. But I like, it's such a weird thing that I don't know what that must feel like to write a script and maybe sell it, say, for $1 million, and then
I know
to look at, it got a budget of 15 million. Then on its opening weekend, it makes 6.3 million in just over 1,400 screens throughout the US. And here's the fucking shocking part. And like, I don't know whether that's something that would bother you at the time, or you would just be happy that your movie got picked up and you were like the new It guy.
Yeah.
But the movie went on to make 161 million.
Well, I heard that it was like or the first week it was like, nah, it didn't.
Yeah,
It's
not that
okay. And then the second week it stayed steady and didn't decline. And they're like, oh, weird. And then by the third week it started picking up, and like people, and then it got, like all these articles and reviews. It was something that was whatever. You can say there was other meta horror movies. What?
Like normally the opening weekend
Yeah.
is like the best, and then it slowly starts to, or it just completely drops off. Whereas this kind of, the momentum went the other way. Like it only made 6 million in the opening weekend, which was like really unremarkable. And they had like this, you know, big idea, and apparently it was Bob Weinstein who said it. He was the one who came up with the release date. Like they released it 4 days before Christmas.
Yeah, well, he was like, why are we releasing this? Like, this is where families go to, you know, watch like family movies with their kids. And he's like, it's a perfect time. Horror fans don't have anything to watch.
Yep. And that, like, to be fair, that's a really clever thing. Like, how many like horror fans don't just disappear because it's Christmas? So it just means that they're probably rewatching some other shit because no one releases horror movies at that time of year. So
it's smart.
I can get his thinking. And up until Halloween 2018, Scream, the original Scream, was the highest grossing slasher film of all time.
Yeah, it's still supposed to be in the top 500 largest grossing films of all time, which is crazy.
That franchise as a whole is like, I don't think something that gets talked about how financially successful.
Yeah.
The lowest box office Scream movie was Scream 4, I think.
Wow, I'm surprised, actually.
And that still made a colossal amount of money. Like, I think most of those movies have totaled over, like, minimum 100 million at the box office. This
was something so unique. I know there was meta horror movies beforehand, but a horror movie so aware of itself in a weird way, and that's when they play on this a lot. It is so well done in a way. And it is crazy how it came. It's just like it's so different. I feel like, you know, I don't know. It's such a smart way of doing stuff. Like, I love slasher films because I also love serial killers. I'm not going to cuddle up in bed with them, but I'm fascinated by the idea of how these people become like this. We've covered so many, and you know, me and Aaron have talks to do like a lot of big serial killer names on Strange Brew Podcast, do some crazy ones, and it's just like, it's just fascinating how these people get to this, and like, this is why these movies are so iconic, because you're always guessing who it is, you know, and everyone, serial killers, like, it's not a monster that like dies and comes back. Human beings can be monsters in their own right, and it's scarier that, like, you know, everyone's like, you know, what does a serial killer look like? He looks like everybody else.
That's I think that's the part where I say easy. It sounds easy now, I think, looking back, but like at the time, that was what was so clever. It was like, we can put in as many red herrings as we want. We can put in as many distractions and like make you think that it's, because it literally could be anybody. Yeah.
And that's why it's always a
surprise, Sydney.
It's always a surprise.
So yeah, it was okay. So I suppose we're at this point we're talking about the original Scream 1. Or just Scream. Directed by Wes Craven, written by
Scream
Kevin
1996 now, because they chose to do the fifth one as Scream, which I don't think it was.
This is a bit weird.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily need to do that, but I do like that they don't do like Scream, the return of Ghostface, Scream, the revenge of Ghostface. Like, I'm glad they don't do that shit, because it's fucking. Sometimes it gets stupid. The return of Michael Diapers.
There was a couple of weird ones. I can't remember if I wrote them down at some point. I'll probably come across them, but there was like talks of, you know, when the sequels came up, there was like Scream Louder and Scream Again and shit like that, and it was just like,
I don't like that.
It's like Scream ...
Everyone
again.
Ignore my Michael Diapers fucking thing. I don't know why I said that.
It was quite good though, to be fair. The movie won the MTV Movie Awards Best Movie, the Saturn Awards Best Movie, Best Actress, and Best Writer of 1997. Obviously, everybody knows that the original like working title was Scary Movie, and the studio actually wanted to change to Scream.
It was Bobby. It's Bob Weinstein. That
I
creeper's
seen
fucking
that,
brother.
I seen that Jamie Kennedy still up until recently thinks that it would have been better to leave the name as Scary Movie because he felt like it fit in with that weird like meta
Yeah.
thing. He was like,
I
it would
like
have been,
Jamie
he was
Kennedy
like,
a
think
lot.
about saying to your friends, like, you know, do you want to go to the movie theater or to see what?
See
To see
Scary
Scary Movie. He was like, it would
Yeah.
have just fit that whole thing.
I agree. He's very happy about the new one, and like the harken back to stuff, like because Uncle Randy on the new one, and we're not gonna spoil that because that'll come later on. But I like Jamie Kennedy. I especially like his political views because he was someone who stood up against a lot of the shit and joked about it. So good for him for having a mind of his own because he's always been like that and didn't really care about what he said and already has made his mark in Hollywood for
And
what it
even in his
is.
career, he's like similar. I think that's just like his outlook. He just kind of does his own thing.
Yeah, look at fucking Malibu's Most Wanted. I love that movie growing up. That shit was stupid and funny and like it was always been iconic. I didn't see it for years and I revisited it and I was like, it's still fucking, it's stupid. It's so dumb, but it's funny. And so well, like what? So we're going on to what do you want to talk about now? Because I want to break down some of the movies as we go through these two.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, I suppose we'll talk specifically about the first one. There's a couple of different things like Wes Craven turning it down originally because he had just done. Well, he hadn't just done it, but Vampire in Brooklyn had just come out the year before, and like.
Do you like that movie?
Yeah, it was a complete flop, and apparently he was really apprehensive about doing horror again, and he kind of felt like.
What was he gonna do?
Maybe I've had my time now in horror. Like I've had so much success over, you know.
What was he gonna do? Like a fucking
romantic
romantic comedy?
He had something in mind. I can't remember what it was, but he was like, I kind of want to sway away from doing straight horror movies. And then the story of The Mask. There's a lot of stories out there.
I want to talk about that. Yeah,
they discovered it. That they discovered it like they did the Michael Myers thing in like some random costume store, which is actually not the case. They were scouting locations for the movie, and this mask was hanging on the top of the headboard of a bed.
weird.
And someone saw it. I don't know if it was one of the producers, and she picked it up, and they were looking at it like, this looks good. And
Did they already start drawing the concepts for essentially taking it from the painting? Isn't it called? What's it called? What's the painting called? Scream.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is actually called
the
that.
Scream or something like that.
Yeah. No.
Did they not have? I thought they were like doing a concept for that.
No. So the whole idea came from seeing this mask, and then it all went from there. And the original idea was to have the face white. They were going to put him in a full white cloak robe. And then when they sat down like at the studio meetings, they were like, how much is this going to look like a member of the KKK?
A Klan member. Yeah.
Let's not do that anyway. So let's change.
They were because he was like, oh, ghost. Because in the script, all it says is a ghost face. That's. I wish I could. I don't know if I can find it, but it'd be cool.
I know that when they were shooting the movie, even. So when they found this mask, they reached out to the company that made the mask called Fun World, and it was just like a generic, like all those companies do. You have those just like generic Halloween masks. It wasn't anything, and they reached out to Fun World, and this is the strange part I always found, and I would love to talk to someone from Fun World to see like what the actual story was.
Yeah.
But apparently, when they reached out to them originally, Fun World couldn't come to an agreement with them about money. Now I don't know how well. I suppose.
Yeah.
Kudos to whoever they were dealing with Fun World, because, I mean, if you have the wherewithal to be like, hold on a second now, this could be something that's potentially massively like a financial gain here, so we're not just going to agree to any amount of money.
Yeah.
So they were going back and forth, and that's when Wes had he approached KMB, who actually I had the head of KMB on the show about a year ago as well. They approached KMB to design something similar. And if you watch the original movie, the scene with Casey at the start,
Yeah.
and the scene with Principal
Also,
Henry,
yeah,
is
the
it, or whatever his
shitty
name is?
mask.
That,
looks so
that's
bad.
that's the mask that KMB created to try and make it look like that one, but not
Close.
look like it at the same time.
And you see
They
it
had
when
to, like-
when Ghostface looks at her in the window.
They had to like round it and make it kind of look a bit
looks
goofy
fucking
looking
bad.
because they didn't want to get hit with any
Copyright.
sort of fucking copyright or whatever. And so much so that Bob Weinstein actually hated the mask, and he told them, "No, that's it. I'm stepping in. I'm retconning that whole thing. We're getting rid of the mask. We're changing the whole design of the villain because I hate that mask so much." And I think it was Wes and a few others had said to him, "Okay, I tell you what. Let us finish shooting the opening scene. Let us cut it together, and then you can watch the first 13 minutes. And if you still hate it, then we'll change everything."
This is somewhat of the problem is producers that think they know anything.
And here, now this, I was actually surprised to hear this. So they cut together the first 13 minutes, which is that opening scene. And Bob Weinstein watches it. And then he rings Wes the next day and says, "Well, I'm going to keep my nose out of your business regarding this movie. I obviously don't know shit."
Yeah, you don't know. The producers have fucking ruined movies
I know, yeah.
that could have been good. So shut the fuck up, okay? Shut the fuck up.
That scene actually as well where the killer breaks the window.
Here, do you want me to read a little piece?
Yeah,
This is
sure.
kind of cool. So, and you can tell some of it is changed in the movie, so it's actually kind of cool. So, Casey creeps along to the next window. She looks in. The figure is completely on the other side of the room, moving towards the hall that leads to the other parts of the house. She moves further along the house, squeezing by the hedges to the third window. She peeks in to see the figure staring back at her, his face covered with a ghostly white mask, inches from her. Her eyes piercing through, soulless. Casey screams bloody murder as the hand crashes through the window, grabbing a hold of her neck. She beats at him. We're trying to free herself. Her nails dig into the side of his arm, which I don't think we kind of maybe see. She wrenches from side to side, finally breaking free as the hand disappears inside the house. So that's, I'm pretty sure, when the first time they even mentioned that it was just a ghostly white mask. Pretty cool. I got to read through this whole thing. I have yet to do it, I think.
Yeah, you should. I actually might try and buy that. And
it was on Etsy, dude. It's too bad. I would love the real one. It'd be expensive as fuck, but
that scene where Ghostface breaks through the window, that's actually Wes Craven who was in the suit.
yeah, because a lot of it was stuntmen. But I'm like, everyone when they watch the movie, you think it's like that, like Skeet Ulrich or Matthew Lillard. So we should, when we go through this stuff, right? We should talk about like who we think is in the Ghostface costume during certain scenes. The more iconic scenes, because you'd have to logically think about who it would be. Do you want to bring in the intro, the main thing of one of the most craziest things to have been impactful things to being done about a horror movie is to kill off one of the most famous actress, whatever, in the entire movie at the beginning.
I mean, and even if you look at some of the promo stuff, let me see if I can bring some of it up here. I don't know if I actually had. Yeah, so if you look at some of the images,
weird.
These are all promo images for the original movie.
Oh, I feel like I remember that one with her face down there. That's so old. I feel like I remember that.
If you notice something about most of them,
Who's
the most prominent feature of nearly all of them?
Yep.
Is Drew Barrymore, and I think that like again, this we have to remember, this isn't 2023 that this is happening. This is 1996. So again, to come up with that idea and be like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get one of the biggest movie stars in the world, and we're going to kill her in the first 15 minutes.
She was supposed to originally play Sydney, but she actually chose not to. She chose to want to kill me at the beginning, which in all retrospect, if it really was her complete idea, wow, she's kind of smart.
How creative is that? Like,
it's so cool. Like the VHS, look at the VHSs bring me back because I had the original VHS. But some of the other designs are kind of cool, like the Gale Weathers one and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. Don't answer the phone. Don't open the door. Don't try to escape. Don't try to hide. Don't ever scream.
And like those VHS covers. Let me see if I can pull these around.
Look at the ones of him running and stuff. The scariest movie of the year. It has like the little running guy. That's been on a bunch of them.
Oh yeah, I didn't even see that. I love the one, the UK one. They're the red. Bring a spare pair, and it just has.
That's weird.
That's so random.
I don't know. You know when I was at that antique store and I showed you guys all the fucking VHSs, and Chelsea's like, "Why do you need that?" And it was the original Halloween VHS in like a nice case, really well kept, and it was cheap. And I'm like, I'm coming. We might go back tomorrow. And I'm like, I kind of want to get just to have some cool VHSs. Like I'm never gonna watch them, but to have them is like, I fucking like that. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll try to convince her to get. I want one tomorrow.
And the ones that you guys have, like with those slip covers and all, they're fucking so cool.
It's fucking sick. Like I'm like, I gotta get at least one or two. And now I'm going back to where like I have so many horror movies on digital, but like now I'm going back where I need physical copies. Say if the internet goes down, something happens, who knows in the world we live in today, that I have the DVDs or like at least that, right? So as long as I have power, it is like this was probably pumped up. It is funny that the cover, Skeet Ulrich doesn't look like him as much with the mustache and shit. Like he doesn't even have that in the film, really.
Yeah, which is kind of bizarre. I know.
I know. Weird. So do you want do you want to talk about the opening scene, or what do you want to get into?
Yeah, I mean everything and anything. Anything you have to add, anything you'd like to jump into, I'm all for.
So I think that we should talk about deconstruct it to an extent. Is the beginning is fucking amazing and frightening all in one, and this is part of the reason why they had to cut some stuff out, because like it was almost too graphic, like the boyfriend's guts falling out, which is like to me nowadays it's like it wouldn't have mattered, but and there should come a day where we talk about some Italian horror flicks. I'm not too versed on it, but the fact that they have no rating there, it's fucked.
Yeah, well, so there was an unrated version that was released in '97 on tape, and some of like the key differences that were cut out or edited slightly for the original theatrical release. Like you said, there's Steve's guts. There was a lot more.
They
of a
drop down
where they're all like, they're like falling out.
The gravity of the guts.
There's that scene where it zooms in on Casey when she's hanging from the tree.
Oh yeah, that's an iconic fucking. Oh man,
that stayed. The camera stays on her a lot longer and it shows it kind of a little bit more in her kind of swaying on the tree. The scene where Tatum gets caught in the doggy flap thing,
which we'll talk.
See her head get crushed.
Oh, that's cool. Well, that will have to come as we go through this, because that one's weird.
When Kenny gets his throat slit, the cameraman.
Oh yeah, it's like more.
Way more graphic.
Mm-hmm. Which I love. Fucking shit down that way.
And the scene with Stu and Billy at the end when they're stabbing each other, apparently that was way more graphic and way more realistic. I think they like linger on a lot of the like stabbing and kind of really emphasize like what they're doing to each other.
Yeah.
If you look at the version that most of us see or have seen, there's a lot of like very fast edits that go between the two. Whereas I think in the original unrated version of that scene, there was a lot more like lingering shots on like them driving the knife into each other and then like sliding it back out and like twisting it and shit.
I don't know. It's like I would love to see some of the unrated versions of the stuff, and I don't know if we could ever find them. But the iconic beginning scene of like, okay, even me as a kid was fairly shocked at the fact that they did that, killing off her, and it always reminds me of like my dad's fucking main crush is Drew Barrymore, a strange one, but he was like, yeah, that's my celebrity crush. Like, I don't know what it was about her, but like she was fairly famous at the time. Has been famous since she was a kid, and then for them to kind of kill off the main girl is. I think that it made Scream what it was, And
it also, I think, it set that trend and tone for what the franchise was going to become. I know they didn't really have they probably didn't have the foresight at the time to think, it was going to spawn what it did. But, they really set a trend there of like all their opening scenes and kills had to be like pretty iconic.
And it was awesome. They did that it's rare that a movie does, and it's kept to it the entire time. And even when we eventually talk about, the fourth one of how it's like a movie within a movie within a movie, and it's just like it's just clever, right? That beginning scene of the original phone call, and it's so you're realizing that this guy's fucking around, and
I want to play a game.
And like kind of like scaring her, and then this is such an iconic line. I'm gonna play it again.
You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish, understand?
It's cool how his octaves, how he like freaks out, and then he's like kind of like, yeah, you better not fucking do that.
I love Roger Jackson. I know he's not in the suit.
No,
but he is Ghostface to me. It's very hard to like. I think, to me, not having his voice as Ghostface would be similar to like not having Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. It's that kind of thing where I'm like, I know other people can probably imitate that voice to a degree, but it's like you said, he has this thing about his voice. I don't know exactly what it is.
He's a strange dude. When I watch the doc and he's like, they don't show his face, and he like loves that shit. He loves the movies. It seems like it's kind of cool how he like kind of plays on to this creepy aspect of being that creepy guy. And I didn't know that about him. And then like I was like, weird. They don't even show him. He's like just a silhouette of him talking.
I like that they really lean into that whole thing. That another interesting fact, that house in the opening scene, that's next door to the house that most of the movie Cujo was filmed at.
I heard about that too. That's fucking cool.
Yeah, there's like and there's a lot of that within the franchise actually. That original trilogy of Scream, where houses or locations that are used are like right next to or the same as locations from other like pretty huge movies.
Yeah, well, even I guess we can bring it up now is like the whole thing with the high school. And how they were gonna film at a certain high school, and then they said it was a comedy movie, and then they read the script, like the principal or whoever the guy that runs the school, the community or whatever, and they didn't like that it was based on like teenagers getting murdered, so they had to switch it to like another location around the same place. But isn't it in Santa Fe? Is that not where they filmed?
Somewhere like that, yeah.
Yeah, like some idyllic town. Is that the word I want to use?
Again, like another I suppose it feeds into the whole like meta kind of breaking the fourth wall thing. Like the amount of movie references even in the first one, like just to name a few, Apollo 13, Carrie, E.T., Frankenstein, Prom Night, The Exorcist, The Howling, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, When a Stranger Calls. Like that's only to name a handful. There's so many movie references, and I think for a horror and a movie fan, seeing and hearing that shit in a movie is like, it's so cool to see.
I always like that, and like I was watching something where we'll get into it in the next one, but like how Scream 2 is the one where Randy dies. It's just like, because he's such an iconic character. So as we go through this, I think we should talk about the characters and these iconic characters, like that David Arquette supposedly wanted to be. He was actually going to be cast as one of the teenagers, and he wanted to be Dewey, specifically because he wanted to kiss Courteney Cox supposedly.
Do you know who they wanted him as originally?
Who?
Billy Loomis.
Oh, weird. That would have been a way different movie.
And I was listening to an interview with him at one of those.
He's a weird dude, eh?
Yeah, at one of those there was like him and I think Courtney was there and Jamie and maybe Matthew Lillard. and Skeet. They done like a
Skeet,
panel
Skeet,
at some
Skeet.
convention, and he's talking about it, and he's like, yeah, I felt like when I went in there and like I read for the part, it just wasn't for me, and I would have been much better suited as the character of Dewey. And it all kind of spawned from there, which is kind of wild.
I heard he wanted to
Imagine
kiss
him-
Courtney Cox because he's a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me.
That's funny.
He is a fucking strange dude. There's also a scene actually where, speaking of different characters and whatever, when Ghostface
He's a
sneaks
real
up
character.
on Randy towards the end of the movie, where he comes in behind him and he's watching whatever. Remember, he's like, "Look behind you," and all.
Oh
that
yeah,
shit.
yeah. When he's watching Halloween.
If you actually listen back, and I think maybe in some of the cuts of the movie it's been fixed, but it's still out there. You can still see it. There's in that scene where Sydney is like looking at the monitor or whatever it is, where she sees him. She actually breaks character and she calls him Jamie.
Really?
Yeah.
That legit? What? And it's in the movie?
Yeah, and they like in a lot of the versions of it they like ADR'd that bit over to put like Randy.
Weird.
Yeah, but there's like clips of it where she says Jamie. You can hear Jamie in the background.
Oh, that's kind of cool. One of my favorite characters. So who was originally going to play Sydney? Wasn't it like there's a bunch of different people?
Yeah, there was a shit ton of people mentioned for her. Like you said, Drew Barrymore was a huge one in the running for that.
It's crazy because without Neve Campbell, which on one thing I was listening to her, they called her Neve Campbell, and I was like, you motherfuckers don't even watch these films. Like if for the people on other shows that I've seen cover this stuff that truly don't really understand the franchise, and it's fucking weird to me. And to me there was a bunch of different people, some pretty famous people that were supposed to play her, but without her, she makes the film. Obviously, I had a big crush on her, but like she just makes this of like the innocent, but still a fighter in a way. Like that's how I see it. Like she's very like nervous acting, and I think without her would not be the same.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about her. I think just as an actress and just her mannerisms in general.
Her face, the way her facial expressions, like it's great.
Yeah, like she I don't know. She just kind of comes across like she's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, the reaction you would have, if all your friends are being murdered by some dude in a fucking ghost costume.
Everyone's kind of perfect. Like the setup, like even Courtney Cox, and that she actually wanted it more. She was actually opting to get in the movie, according to what I heard, and she wanted to be in it, and they didn't know if necessarily she would be fit for it, and she said she wanted to play like the bitch character because she is yet to kind of do that, and she was perfect. Everyone is perfect in the way that this film goes. Skeet Ulrich is fucking perfect. Matthew Lillard is perfect, and it's very funny when you see interviews with him. He's like, I'm fucking spitting everywhere. I'm acting like a fool. And he's like, I don't even know why they let me do that. And it made the fucking film. He's my favorite character in the entire Scream franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Him and Randy.
Again, like it's one of those things, I think, where everything just came together. It was just perfect.
And the fact they got fucking, what's his name? The principal. What's his name again?
Yeah.
The Fonz.
God, what's
Henry Winkler.
Dudes.
Henry fucking Winkler.
I love that scene with him there. We can see with him with the scissors.
It makes you think that he might be the killer too, because he's like kind of psycho.
And then they have that, and then his death scene and whatever, and so that whole scene with him.
Wes Craven pops in as the janitor. He's like, he slips on. There's fucking footage of him like slipping on the water, and he was like, I felt like a fucking idiot.
Him dressed as fucking Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, the original costume, he said, because he had it.
So the death of, I think he was called Principal Himbry or something like that. So his death was only added. This is actually something that we could maybe potentially credit Bob Weinstein for. When he was reading the script, he noticed that there was between 30 and 35 pages that had passed in the script without any sort of a death scene or any sort of danger as such.
Yeah.
So because of that, he said, like, no, this can't fly. We need, every so often it's like a beat or whatever in a song. We need it to hit a certain, and because of that scene was added and shot like after the fact. That was never the intention.
Well, even it's crazy because even just I don't know, just like there's certain like the little aspects of comedy in it and like all that shit is like kind of perfect in a way, like how it's kind of funny and like. And obviously you go through the film, and even when I watched it as a kid, you don't necessarily know who is they hint at so many things, right? And that iconic beginning scene where they're all sitting around like the fucking fountain, almost like it's Friends, but it's not. It's just like a cement thing. I don't think it's a fountain. Yeah. And then that's what like fucking, he's like, liver alone. Like all those fun, iconic moments of referencing other movies. And Randy talking about like, did you leave her liver in the mailbox or whatever? Like that scene, I love that scene. Iconic. Without like there's so many iconic things about this film.
Yeah, and like we were talking a second ago about, other people playing Billy Loomis's character. Kevin Patrick Walls, who played Stephen Ort, who's Casey's boyfriend at the start.
Oh, weird.
He was actually one of the final 3 people that was like seriously considered for Billy Loomis.
That's crazy.
I know, yeah, and then he just kind of gets like a throwaway part.
Perfectly. I don't know, like, to me, like, without Skeet Ulrich, without Matthew Lillard, without fucking Jamie Kennedy, which, honestly, I would love for one day if I was able to speak to Jamie Kennedy in general, because he does his own show. We have similar thoughts.
I was in conversations very vaguely with them at one point, and then his YouTube channel kind of blew up, and that whole thing just, like, fell apart. I'm assuming he's famous. Like, so many people.
It would have been so cool. He's just I don't know, he's so iconic in like all these characters without them, the movie, even Rose McGowan, okay? The fucking good thing it was cold because as a young boy, those nipples. It reminded me of Friends.
I know, yeah.
I don't like her now. I think that that's like for people probably like, this kid's fucking nuts if you haven't heard any of me before, but who knows, she maybe drinks baby's blood because or something. There's a lot of talk about pizza with Jennifer Aniston and now she makes great pizza. Yeah, I'm sure that she makes great pizza, people. But I know that supposedly it's been discredited and all that shit, but there's weird theories out there and some of them are could be possible. But like, I had a huge crush on Jennifer Aniston just because that whole thing of like watching Friends as a kid and their nipples are showing. So I'm sure it was the same thing for Rose McGowan and Scream because the entire time her like nipples are just hard as fucking icicles.
And I wouldn't mind, like, I was looking at an interview of her and she said that for years people always asked her, did they make her put like prosthetic nipples on?
Did she?
No.
She probably got a nice pair.
Yeah, I'd say she did. She was pretty hot, to be fair.
And that whole like, and obviously you have references towards like Scary Movie with a lot of some of the death scenes and stuff like that, which makes even this film more iconic in a way. But like as you bring it through, when there's all these iconic characters and you're getting to know them, and then kind of I love the scene in the where Randy wears like the fucking Blockbuster essentially. And he's
what was that called again? Bradley Video?
Is that what it was called? That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, he works there and he's like the knowledgeable guy. And without him, right, it makes it more meta that he's around. And then it's just funny how he goes through the whole dialogue of like, everyone's a fucking suspect and shit, and like freaking out.
Him and Dewey were in the original idea. Both of them were supposed to die in the first movie.
That would have been sad.
And it was only because I think they'd done some like test screenings and like test readings of the script and whatever, and all the feedback was that those were the 2 most loved characters. So yeah, they just put it in the contract or whatever. They were like, okay, well, you're at least gonna make it to the sequel if we get one, and we'll see where we go from there.
That scene is so good where he's like, talking to Stu, and
There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
just freaks out.
And like everyone in there is like looking around, like, what the fuck's going on?
That's why I think it's very funny, because you kind of like talk, like, what about Billy? He's so simple. Like, the dad is a red herring, and he calls it, and then like that he's freaking out with like 2 VHSs in his hand, and then everyone's like fucking crazy, and like how many are you still working here? He's like, I've been fired 3 times.
He's again, like, he's another one of those people that's such an iconic actor and character in that role. I think as well, over the whole franchise, his death is the one that people talk about most. Now, I don't know if that's going to change over time, because obviously, spoiler alert, Dewey is now also dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, for anytime I look up anything to do with Scream or anything about Scream, that's the one thing that people always say that they were pissed off about, and they wish they could change about, like, the storyline.
I think they messed up in some regard.
Killing him.
Yeah. I think that he could have survived till 3 or 4.
In one sense, I can understand where Wes Craven was coming from. He was like, we really had to, once we had a sequel and we realized how successful the original was, we really felt like we had to up the stakes. And he was one of the most loved characters, and he was like, so killing him would have been such a, like, wow, they, like, anything can actually really happen.
And I get why they did that. When we get to 2, I want to get to 2, but I feel like we should, I don't know, do you feel like bringing us back on cam, and then we'll kind of discuss the most famous scene of all, the ending? Because, like, to me, like, it brings it up. It kind of leads this point, where the killer's chasing down Sid. There's, her blocking herself in her room, which is like this iconic thing of like her putting the 2 doors together. And when they first realize it, but then the whole thing about a fucking cell phone, one thing I don't like and I hate is when he fucking drops the phone, like, so in the shot of it is just like, and I know they were making fun of it. I get that's probably what they're going for as a joke, but the fact that he comes in, tries to protect her, looks kind of creepy with his head like angled down, and then he drops the cell phone. And that's why they make the joke in Scary Movie where he drops the cell phone, then the mask and the knife, and like all at the same time, because it's something so like you don't have it tucked in your pocket that well. You almost like did this on purpose, it seemed like, and then he goes to, like, he gets put in the jail and like just staring at her like, fuck you, okay, gonna blame me.
Yeah, like the way that's done. That, speaking of that final scene, that's got to be one of the longer run times as well, I think, in, like, for just a scene in general. It's 42 minutes long, that final act, and for a lot of the production crew, for a lot of the production crew and stuff like that, it's been cited as the what did they cite it as? They refer to it as the scene from hell, or the longest night in horror history.
That's fucked.
Because it took 21 nights of filming to complete that 42-minute sequence.
It's amazing. My favorite end to a movie ever.
So good, so iconic. They even made after it all happened, they're like super fucking rare, and I want to say I seen ones like selling for like between $6,000 and $8,000. They had made for all the cast and crew I Survived Scene 118 t-shirts, which is kind of anyone who's looking at the video thing, I'm wearing a Stab film crew shirt, and on the back it has I survived the filming of Stab, a Robert Rodriguez movie.
That's so fun.
Because obviously in it there was the reference of Robert Rodriguez had been making the Stab movies within the Scream universe.
Yeah. Already. Okay. So even like the end scene is my favorite part. Like, you're trying to guess who it is. In that scene where, like, I get so animated about this stuff because how much I love it, is like when Sydney realizes like Stu's like, fucking Randy did it, and then Randy's like, no, fucking he did it, he's a fucking maniac, and then she doesn't know who to, Yeah, I mean, even that, I want to go back even to that famous line where she's like, fuck you, you cretin, or whatever. But she says cretin instead of cretin. And it's just like all these iconic little things that I remember as a kid, why I liked it. And weird things, what am I doing? When she's picking her nose. Just all those fun fucking scenes. I love that shit. But like when she starts to realize, right? And then, so obviously she makes the mistake in a horror movie of having sex. Billy lures her in, right? That's a whole nostalgic thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm drinking a tequila soda. I don't know if this is a good idea. I've already had whiskey and coffee, but why not?
Probably not the best idea, but sure, just do it anyway.
Alien OG. Fucking, this shit's delicious. Here, smoke it.
I wish. Send me some
one day. I know. I wonder if you could, but because we have stuff in Canada where you can't go through the mail. The government can't do that or anything. If I would be in jail, probably. Because I don't know how else I can't grow fucking fungus. But so that whole, like, the lead up to it, and then he gets stabbed, the whole shocking scene, because even as a kid, I remember, like, first time I watched it, did not know who the killer was. Like, it was still up in the air, didn't know, and then when he gets stabbed, you're like, oh, it's not him. Then you get that iconic scene of what would you do if you got stabbed? Would you fall down the stairs because you're badly hurt? Because that whole thing of him being like, and just like falling down the stairs.
Do you know what I do find though in that end scene? And it doesn't really get me as much as in more modern movies. I don't feel as like I went to see Scream 6 again last night, and obviously there's some like extremely violent Ghostface kills
which I like.
The stabbing is like fucking I don't know. It's like frenzied and like crazy compared to I think what we're used to with some of the kills.
Yeah.
But it doesn't ever really like, I'm not like that shocked. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But that end scene with Billy and Stu when they're like stabbing each other and cutting each other and shit.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but even nowadays, like even though it was done,
it's
in
still
96,
fucked.
I'm still looking at it, kind of going, oh, there's something like really like grim and raw about that.
I watched it really stoned, and in my head, honestly, sometimes I will eventually maybe watch these movies on mushrooms. Like I would honestly, if I did a high
I thought you
dose,
were about to say, oh, someday, eventually I probably will stab somebody.
No, that's not gonna. Just to see what it's like. But like it changed your aspect in your thought process when you're on psychedelics, obviously. But to like, because it lasts so long to watch all three. I did a dose yesterday, a pretty high dose, and I tried watching the doc about it, and I was like, I fucking don't, because the beginning sucks. I felt awful, and but like when I was sitting there, I was watching Stu. I was imagining what it would be like to be stabbed so deep. Your body's in shock. So you might not feel the pain as much, but then you're bleeding out. So you're starting to get, lightheaded and
I'm feeling woozy here.
lightheaded and all that shit. But to bring it back, I just wanted to the whole when you realize, kind of who it is.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
That was one of the sound clips when I was a kid that I used to just play over and over.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Anthony Perkins, Psycho, and he's like rubbing the gun on his head, and he shoots Randy in the fucking fucking, god damn it, shoulder.
That's that tequila.
There's that fucking weed. But like, cause that's, to me, that seems so iconic of you like realize, if you've never seen the movie before, obviously now you see it over and over, like the ending's the best part, you're waiting for it. I always love rewatching, especially those scenes, because I was obsessed with it when I was a kid. But like that, did you find when you first watched it that you were shocked when you're like...
With the reveal?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%, I was like... And like I said, it just kind of descends into madness from there. I'm like, this is fucking like wild. And I'm like... And then when you find out,
it makes sense.
Yeah, and it's just like the whole thing is like, weird.
It makes sense once you look back at it. Once you realize it's them, then you see the little hints about like Stu making jokes about it, and like them best friends, and kind of it kept hinting at like Skeet or like Billy Loomis's character, which is obviously harking back to Halloween and the meta of this. And the whole thing I loved of like the voice changer. Once you kind of realize that they're like using this voice changer shit.
It's called Guess How I'm Gonna Die!
That scene when he's like, I remember as a kid loving that shit. I literally I download the sound effects and would just like be in my room as a 10-year-old boy and be like,
It's called Guess How I'm Gonna Die!
It's like such a creepy.
I remember wanting one of those voice changers that like
Me too.
for years, right? I was like,
have you ever got one?
I don't care. I need to get one of those voice changers. And then like eventually I think like one Halloween or something they brought out like one of these really like shitty like generic like ghost face voice changer. And I remember getting it and it was like the most trash thing. Like looking
See, that's disappointing. I would love to buy one now. If you could get the prop where it actually sounded like the voice, but also that your voice is coming through it, like that scene.
It's called Guess How I'm Gonna Die!
Where you still hear his voice.
I want to say that you can get them now. I was looking on Etsy the other night and I seen a Scream voice changer, but it was like $275. So I'm assuming it's an actual like proper.
That's so cool though. I'd still want
I know,
that.
yeah.
I wish I was rich. And then because there's so many lines and in the ending and that are so iconic and like kind of creepy when it all comes to kind of a head. And then like even some of the creepy scenes with like having them use the voice changer.
What's the matter, Sydney? You look like you've seen a ghost.
Like that one is to me like always stuck in my head. Look like you've seen a ghost because he's supposed to be essentially dead.
And like it's all just the whole thing I remember with the character of Ghostface even. You know, the fact that he wore the robe, I was always like, oh, that's so cool. And then he had like the knife, that specific type of knife.
Yeah, but it's a hunting knife.
Yeah, and I was like, love that. Love the fact, you know, that the mask is like so cool looking. And then it was like, you know the way like all different characters, superheroes, whatever, they have like their things. And then he had the voice changer and I was like, oh my God.
So yeah.
So
It's and even like I always laugh at like during the ending of like Stu's character at the party because there's certain scenes where you have to like the beginning, right? People clue into the fact that it's Billy that kills Casey, even though I'm surprised because Stu probably helped because she left Stu. So I'm sure he got some knife stabs in. But they say because he chokes Casey and you see Billy do that at the ending to Sydney, that's most likely Billy that kills Casey at the beginning. That actually like finishes the finishing blows.
Which is like interesting. And that's another thing I love about Scream. There's so much to like dissect.
Yes.
You know, you could probably spend 2 or 3 hours on each movie alone going through all those little minute details.
Well, Stu in his fucking robe too at the party. Like the dude's just wearing like that shit, like so many things that just make me laugh and are just so great about the ending of this film. Like in his silly character. And the fact that like he would know the inside of the house. He would know he would definitely know what Casey's house was like, at least Stu would, right? And then when they have the party, it's his house, is it not?
Stu's
is it
house.
not? It's Stu's house, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It leads in the 5th one, which I like. I'm starting to like. It's more. I'm starting to switch my opinions on stuff than when you originally see it and you watch it over again. It's even like I'll shout out. People hate Last Jedi. Okay, hate that shit. The more that I hated it the first time I watched it, the more I watched it, the more I actually enjoyed it. There's certain scenes that are stupid, but there's some stuff that I really do enjoy about that film. It's the same with some of these where I go back to them like, maybe I like this one more, I like this one. Because there's so many cool little things that you miss and stuff like that, you know? And the fact that Stu would know the house, the layout. So it makes sense when Ghostface is running around.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that in all of these movies, actually, that when they've been dissected, I'm like, it makes it like more fun for me to watch. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Let's see if I can... fuck is required. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Let me see. Let's keep talking. I'm gonna try to figure something out.
Also, another like random pointless fact. The cheerleader in the washroom scene, like earlier in the movie where Sydney's in the bathroom and those cheerleaders or whatever are in there.
Yeah.
One of those was actually Skeet's girlfriend in real life.
Oh, really?
Which is kind of random. They brought out a collector's set. I would fucking kill somebody for this.
Is my co-host on Strange Food Podcast. He is a character in his own right. Could probably fit pretty well in one of these movies as a psycho. So.
Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, he is a Matthew Lillard character. 100%. The way he acts and is on the podcast.
Baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
You sick fucks. You've seen one too many movies.
Now, Sid, don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. Stop it, Billy, would you, all right? I can't take anymore. I'm feeling a little woozy here.
Douchebag's face in the end. Looking like a true psycho.
He's such a freak.
No, so funny. So I probably will add the video into when I'm done finishing the editing just to make sure everything matches up, but it sounds good. But that shit was just funny because I was like, I want to start doing like, because TikTok was just existing, right? So like it just started, so you could do like the little sound clip things, and I was like, your name is Billy, so we should do this. And because when we started Stranger Podcast, we used to like watch the horror movies. Like we used to put horror movies on the background. Mm-hmm. So funny.
Yeah, I mean, like, unless you have anything to add about the original, I think we've covered most of everything. Like, obviously we could rehash all the stuff that people have already said, but I feel like we're trying to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah. No, I agree. So let's get to, because I just started Scream 2, so let's get into that, because this one it's a screamer.
So yeah, like Scream 2, right? For me anyway, equally as fun, enjoyable,
satisfying.
Yeah, that opening scene, chef's kiss, so good.
Chef's kiss. Yeah, it is.
So good.
It's on right now. Omar Epps and what's your name? Jada Pinkett Smith. You know, good old. It's like fucking. I'm not a huge fan of hers as an actress, whatever. But
yeah, no, I hate her. She's terrible. I hate her and everything. I hate her as a person. Everything to do with her. It has not.
Will Smith
really
crying about Chris Rock's jokes. Like, shut the fuck up.
Terrible. The two of them are.
You
just
slapped a man on stage, faked or not. You still did it.
That opening scene.
Meta.
Scream 2, yeah, it's like
so
good.
Meta.
And I remember like being younger and being obsessed with the fact that they had this like screening where they were handing out like free costumes and shit.
While rewatching, I was like, I want that.
I know.
You know, why could they do that?
Bad. Do you imagine
the studios
how
give it
cool that would be if you went to go see Scream and they were giving out ghost face masks?
Yeah, it would be cool on opening night. They do it one time, so it's not super expensive for the studio. And if you got those tickets to go see that, and then you're sitting and watching it, and I said to Chelsea that I was like, I would probably watch them, because we started this movie last night. I would probably wear the mask the whole time.
100%.
And then the whole scene, because it's showing like them watching the movie, and then Omar Epps being like, I'm fucking hard right now, whatever he says. And like this, the idea of everyone in the crowd's dressed up, and like this to me and Chelsea, like that's not like what horror movies are like. And I was like, me and Aaron are eventually going to talk about When a Stranger Calls. When I saw that in theaters, that was the same vibe. Like there was people like sitting in the rows at the time. Like I feel like people got kicked out. Like it was just a wild, everyone like jumping, screaming, yelling. And it was the same feel for me. And I've been to movies, not now because they don't do this anymore because they're so strict. But when I was a kid, that people were just like, you know, people would show up drunk and shit. It was wild.
I could 100% say that. I wish we could like go back to like that kind of thing again.
If you ever come down and because eventually if we get the other side of the house and stuff like that, there'll be a spare room and you will be able to go. I think there's a movie theater only 45 minutes away from me, and you can drink there. Like they have like bar table setups and stuff like that. And so I was like, that would be cool to even like go there and drink and get someone to pick us up and like just get actually kind of drunk there.
Again, like this movie directed by Wes Craven, written by Kevin Williamson, and edited again by Patrick Lussier. And I do think that some of the success of this definitely came from keeping the same crew and the same team.
Yeah, because they had the same crew also, so it's felt like a family, according to Neve Campbell, right? So
yeah, which I think is a good thing, and it doesn't happen that often anymore. I feel like they just meddled with shit a lot. This one had a slightly bigger budget than the original. It came in at 24 million, so it had 9 million extra.
So cool.
Opening weekend, it done 33 million, and it opened in 2,263 screens throughout the States.
This movie is one of the highest grossing horror movies also. And also, especially as a sequel. Because people enjoyed the first one so much.
I think, just in the States alone, it made over 100 million.
So cool. And it's just like the iconic scenes of them watching it, everyone dressed up. I love the glowing knives. To be honest, I want one.
So good.
Do you have one? I would love to.
So good. This again won, not that this really matters or anything, but at the time it won the blockbuster male and female actor and actress in horror, David Arquette and Neve Campbell. The MTV Movie Awards favorite actress, again, Neve Campbell. Apparently, now I don't know how true some of this stuff is, because there's a lot of trivia and apparent behind the scenes stories and whatever. So apparently Robert Rodriguez was considered to direct the first movie when Wes didn't want to do it, and then he was in talks to potentially do a sequel, because apparently Wes and Kevin Williamson had a disagreement over the script or something like that, and they were kind of going back and forth. And of course, Dimension and Bob Weinstein being who he is and Miramax and all that, he stepped in and apparently was going to just tell Wes, well, okay, you could just leave the project, and I've already arranged another director. And apparently Rodriguez outright told Bob Weinstein, he was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. He was like, that's Wes Craven's baby. We're not best friends or anything, but he was like, I would never disrespect a master of the genre by trying to step in when you were having a disagreement with the studio.
Yeah, and Wesley is an interesting character. He seems like he jokes about how he cares, and he doesn't necessarily that's why some people don't like him, is he doesn't necessarily I don't know, feed into the horror genre as much as he should, in the ways that he almost, there's sometimes where I hear him talk where he kind of regrets in a weird way, pushing some of these these graphic horror movies. But then I'm like, is he saying that just out of appeal, or does he actually think that maybe he pushed things too far in movies or whatever it is? But
I feel like as well he has a weird sense of humor, because if you notice, in a lot of his interviews and a lot of stuff that features him, he's always kind of smirking and he has this kind of grin on his face. And I've noticed with him, he kind of flip-flops between, sometimes I feel like he's kind of not shitting on the horror genre, but kind of maybe making fun of it and being like, oh, it's not all that serious, it's just a lot of fucking mumbo jumbo garbage or whatever. But then at the flip side of it, when you hear a lot of the behind the scenes stories and other people talk about their experiences with him, and all of them always said that he was so in tune with what he wanted or what he felt needed to be done, that he was willing to, if you had someone like Bob Weinstein telling them, oh, well, you need to do this or you need to do that, and he'd just be like, nah, I'm good then, I'm not going to do that.
You listen, you little bitch.
That's what you'd probably say.
But
You listen, you little bitch. Shut the fuck up. I know what I'm doing.
Which is kind of weird, like, because a lot of people, and especially back then, you know, the Weinsteins and stuff, like, nobody was like, you know, no one's going to back answer to them because they were handing out these massive budgets and checks to people. So
I know. And I wonder what type of blood sacrifice rituals they have to do to get in those spots. Because, like, they are so iconic, and then everything gets revealed with Me Too and stuff like that, obviously, with fucking the other Weinstein. But, like, it is, it's crazy because, like, the beginning scene, too, of, like, her, when he goes to the washroom, okay, I'm going to say, I said to Chelsea last night when we watched, like, hey, like, how the fuck, because she's like, how did he drive the knife through the door? And I'm like, but you hear him go, ah! In, like, fucking, like, full force, like, and the thing is that possible? If Mythbusters, I would love if I could create a horror Mythbusters in a way where you could like kind of like get paid to do some of this shit, because I can think of a million things. Would it be possible to do this? You could get like dummies and stuff like that to use. But like, I don't know if you had a strong, solid knife, like some crazy fucking shit, like the one that I made, like this pure fucking steel, and then you like just fucking drive it through, like. It's because you'd have to have like if it was like actually like carbon steel, you put the force of it like hardcore through the door. You'd have to use so much strength to get that through.
yeah, and especially like to go through the door or the wall or whatever it is of the fucking cubicle, and then go through his skull essentially.
Yeah, and obviously like I'll never forget the thing in Scary Movie where it's a dick, and it's like how the dick go through the door. Like it's always but it still isn't terrible, just for the fact that in some, I don't know, like there could have been a slightly better way of how they did it, but a knife going through your fucking ear to your brain through. But I will say that beginning when he comes to the back and sits down, and you know that Omar Epps is dead, right? You know he's dead. So when he sits back down and then she's like cuddling up next to him, it's
so good.
And then because the stab that when you're watching the film and she's like, here it comes, and then the chick on the film gets stabbed like in the chest, and then she kind of just realizes that she's got blood in her hands.
Yeah, I like the way it doesn't, because I think there was probably a very easy way there of being like, as soon as she says, here it comes, that she would get stabbed instantly. But I kind of like the way they dragged it out a little bit longer, where she kind of pulls away and like looks at her hands and she's like, the fuck?
Yeah, and she doesn't realize. And I will say the scene of where her head drops and she goes like,
she falls back.
And then and I said that Chelsea agreed. I was like, that scene of her like her head hitting the ground where her body kind of collapses, and then her skull hitting the thing, you can hear it in the film, and then her like blank expression. And I gotta say, I give it 100% props. How creative, how smart, how fucking dope it is that you get her first person account of like seeing the crowd and everyone realizing what's happening and taking off the masks and being like, what the
and it's
fuck?
that's a really weird shot as well. It's like this weird kind of like fever dream looking thing, because it's not even shown just from like, oh, here's a camera pointing towards the seating area. It's like it has this weird kind of like you can really tell it's through her eyes after being stabbed a shit ton of times, because it's kind of blurry, a little bit out of focus, kind of weird looking.
Yeah.
And I like that about it.
It's cool, and it's very well done of how it would see her thing, and then it brings in that Donna and like the scream too. And I actually like how like, because it's in the scene right now where she gets the phone call at the beginning, and then it's like it's already happened. There's no other thing. And I said to Chelsea, I was like, how many times like after, because it's always directed or around, except for the new ones, so to speak, is kind of formulated around her. And it's like, how many times would you be like, fucking Christ, I gotta do this again because these psychopaths that are obsessed with the movies now? And how at the beginning in Scream 2, she doesn't think it that way at all. She thinks it's happened, it's done, nothing's happening again kind of thing. And then they start to realize.
Yeah, I know, right? I think at that point I'd probably just kill myself and be like, there you go now, anyway, that sorted that out.
I know, Jesus.
It's kind of crazy as well that this sequel was so good, and it's like overall, even from like critics and stuff, like this was received like very well from audiences and critics.
Yeah.
A lot of people consider it better than the first movie, and a lot of people consider it one of the best sequels of all time, which is crazy because it came out a week shy to the year from the original. So it came out on December 12th, 1997.
They always rush things too much. Nightmare on Elm Street did this.
How that was so good for coming out less than 12 months before the original. And it was so highly anticipated. Like when they announced they were doing a sequel, like everybody was like going wild for it. The sequel was given the go ahead while the first one was still in theaters. So they had brought the first one out, I think, in December, and then in the spring of the following year, they like re-released it again in theaters, and that's when they announced that there was going to be a sequel. When this is obviously a big story to do with Scream 2. Basically, the fully developed script was leaked and revealed the killers.
Yeah.
This meant that there was huge rewrites, and some of them completed on the same day that the scenes were shot. Despite these issues, Scream 2 earned $172 million on a budget of $24 million, and only about $600,000 less than the first, which is like, this has got to be one of the most successful franchises ever.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is crazy. And then they leaked there's a leaked version where that David Arquette, like Dewey, is the killer, much like in fucking Scary Movie, which is actually kind of funny. I wonder if they harkened back to that. But like the whole idea that they're making fun of sequels in the beginning, where Randy's like, sequels fucking suck, and like they're making jokes about it in that moment. And I gotta say, Timothy Oliphant or whatever, man, that guy, I like him a lot as a character. Almost like Randy.
A lot of people do. So in some of the leak stories as well, and it's hard to know what's true and what's false here, but like there's a story about one of the extras leaked the script on the internet, and this was like one of the first like major like motion picture leaks on the internet.
Yeah.
And obviously the entire script had to be rewritten. They made everybody sign NDAs. They started printing the script on like all these weird colored pages and shit, so it couldn't be photocopied or scanned or anything.
Yeah, and Xeroxed.
But one of the original ideas actually had 4 killers. So you had so you had Nancy Loomis.
Can we get to this when we get to the ending? Because it's fucking weird.
Yeah, okay.
Because it is weird.
One thing I will say about that whole thing, I won't say exactly what the different endings are. Like you mentioned Dewey being the killer in one of them. There's been a lot of interviews since then where Kevin Williamson said the story is not as simple as you think. It wasn't actually just, somebody leaked the entire script, so we went and wrote different things. He said, we actually had 4 to 5 different endings because we knew how important it was to keep the killer's identity private. So we purposely I wrote the script, say 60% of the way through, and then we vaguely outlined the last 40% about 5 times with 5 different versions, because we knew that this was going to be a thing, and it was a way then maybe to weed out who was actually leaking.
Yeah,
which is quite clever. Like it
is very clever, and the way they to write different alternative endings. It would be very cool if they filmed those endings and we were able to see them, because that would be fucking sick. But like I think that was smart, and I think we should just go through some of the film before we get to the ending, because I love the ending.
Also, actually, on that opening scene, so you remember when they get handed the costumes? I thought this was kind of like a cool, quirky, like bit of trivia. So the lady that hands the two of them the costumes in that opening scene in the movie theater, like the attendant or whatever you want to call her.
Yeah.
She's a woman by the name of Paulette Wilson. She was actually the winner of some huge MTV contest And the first prize was getting an on-screen cameo in the new Scream movie.
Oh, that'd be fucking so cool.
Could you
like think about that
how,
years later?
And like, imagine looking back on that now, like 20-something years later, and going like, I am in one of the most iconic fucking scenes in one of the most iconic franchises of all time.
It's so cool too.
And she's actually on screen. She says something to him, doesn't she?
She's like, she says like, these are from the studio.
Yeah.
It's fucking. That's really cool.
That is cool.
Because I'm watching it, Courteney Cox hair. I feel like she said this afterwards, that her hair in this fucking film, the weird like burgundy streaks or whatever.
Do you know what's mad? Throughout the course of the movies, especially that first trilogy, that became like a fucking running joke. I think, like, do you remember her bangs in number 3?
Yeah, all her hair keeps changing.
Christ, in number 3, it looks like, though, like, I swear to God, like, it literally looks like she cut her own hair. I'm like, that is
like
terrible.
Josh Hartnett from fucking Halloween H2O.
Where it's like fucking spiky and it's like shit fucking.
It's cool that they have certain people. I think it's cool that Kenny's obviously back. Jerry O'Connell is kind of a heartthrob dude back then.
Yeah,
that was in like. I liked him in the film, and it kept you kind of guessing of who it was. Even like the different type of sheriff. To me, the characters are almost like, very close, like almost like, bumping the original movie in some ways, is so close that they're almost touching each other of the characters and how iconic the characters really were. Even like people like Sarah Michelle Gellar. Like Buffy is fucking in the movie, and very much the character she like plays in other stuff where she's just like this scared little blonde girl.
C.C. Cooper or something.
Yeah, which then you have the killer going in the same supposed to be realm and killing them like kind of in the mocking the first movie.
Yeah, you mentioned the character of
Jerry O'Connell.
No, that Timothy Oliphant played. What's his character's name?
Derek. Not Derek, that's the boyfriend. Mickey.
I didn't notice until like a couple of days ago, but Tobey Maguire was the second choice to play him.
That would have been fucking crazy. I actually wonder what that would be like. Because imagine if he was the killer at the end. That'd be so fucking sick. Of like him rubbing the gun on his bloody ass forehead and shit. I like him.
He's
Tobey Maguire.
Like, yeah, like he's quite a good actor, and I feel like as cringy as it is, like in Spider-Man 3, I think it is, when he gets like the fucking Venom thing and,
and
he's
he
like
turns emo.
He's like the bad guy or whatever. I can kind of see him being able to pull off that weird like psychotic dude. Like he's in that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, Brothers, where he comes back from war and his brothers after been fucking his wife and shit, and he goes crazy.
I've never seen that. That sounds fucking good.
Very, very good movie, but there's a really, really underrated scene where he finally puts the pieces together and realizes that his brother's been shagging his wife because they thought he was dead. They thought he died at war.
Yeah.
And like she comes down the stairs and he's like, "Do you know what I had to do to get back to you and the kids?" And she's like crying and she's just like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then he just freaks out. He starts smashing up the kitchen and he's like smashing his head through the glass and shit. And he's like, "Do you know what the fuck I had to do?" He was like, "Do you know what I've done to people?" And he was like,
"That's
"You're fucking my brother."
That sounds fucking cool. Because what you would do to survive war. You know what I have to do? Gut people, shoot them in the fucking head, stab them, beat them up.
That's
like
what he was saying. Like he was like, I think he was like alluding. He was like, "I killed children and everything to get back to you, and you're fucking my brother. He's living in my house."
I want to see that now. That sounds
It's a very good movie. He destroys it, but it's like, I'm not really doing it justice. It's such a real, like, I'm looking at it going, I can imagine being in that exact same, like, if that happened to me, that position where you're like caught between being like extremely upset and sad and just like pure rage.
Yeah. And I've never fucking murdered anybody, just so people are aware, but I've definitely been, I posted something essentially where like saying like I'm sorry if I was ever a villain character in your life, because the use of psychedelics has changed my mind forever of the person that I've played in certain people's lives, and a villain character essentially, because you don't perceive how there's a quote. It's like for every version, like the version of yourself that you think, there is millions of other different versions, not millions, but maybe hundreds or 10, whatever, the people that are close to you, in their eyes, you're a different version of how you see yourself. So that's like a fucking weird thought. So then you have like the psychedelic terms where like if you're on magic mushrooms enough high enough dose, you will look at yourself from the outside, and it's like shadow work. It's called. It's fucked. Because
I recently reached out to a girl that I would have been that villain.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It was kind of one of those things that like hit me, and I was like, I feel like this is something that's been bugging me. But I was like, if it's bugging me, and I was like in my head at the time, I was the good guy.
Yeah.
I was like, really, I was the villain in that situation. So if I feel bad and I'm still thinking about this all these years on, that other person had to have felt like absolute shit when I done what I done.
Well, it's kind of good to like actually go back and have closure sometimes, where you say like, hey, like, I fucked up. You know, I was a bad person. I was a very big villain in, some women's lives, where I was like a teenager and dumb and going on to the next girl, not even thinking about how I was affecting the girl beforehand and stuff like that, which now realizing how ridiculous that is. And it happens on both ends, but men do that a lot to women and stuff like that. And women can do it to men, but you start to realize that you can be a villain character in people's life stories in this reality, not just a movie, but here. And it makes you think about like how these people can snap in these movies, and
I think that ties into as well, like again a huge like plot point of all these movies. We don't really know who.
Yeah.
Because it's the kind, like you mentioned, the character of Derek, like Jerry O'Connell. Okay, yeah, he seems like the perfect, like, nice, great guy and all, and then I'm like, but is he though?
I know, because we'll get to that.
Is he actually?
Could I say this movie to me makes Dewey. It makes Dewey this cemented character in the social consciousness of horror movies, of like just his smirk and his like, just why does his arm? Did they ever explain his arm thing? Like I know why it happens, because he suffers nerve in his back, but in the other movies he gets better. He doesn't always have, and I've never seen them explain that.
In number 3 as well, that he's still a bit wonky, isn't he?
He still limps, but he doesn't have the like crippled hand.
He doesn't have that fucking gammy hand.
I don't know why I wonder why
weird
they
choice. Did that. Weird. When you actually think about it, it's like that was a really weird thing to be.
Because they're at the scene where he's talking to Gail for the first time, and it's like
give yourself a gimpy hand.
It's like that, and he's like holding it on his side, and then because even they reference, and I wonder why it is. Like I don't know, and I don't know if it'd be worth looking up, but like I don't really know why they chose that, because even on the doc they didn't really mention anything, but Randy mentions it, like what's with the fucking arm thing, and he's like you were stabbed in the back, and he's like severed nerve. It's fucking strange. But like so many,
think they ever. I actually don't think they ever really reference exactly like why that was a thing.
Can I say another thing about like when they show the Stab movie and they're talking about it and they're filming it, there is literally references to like scenes that Gale Weathers wouldn't have had in the book. Like the one where it's Luke Wilson, which is funny, and Tori Spelling, and they're like, you gotta get over this shit, blah blah blah. When Billy's talking to Sydney in the hallway, and it's like Gail wouldn't know of that scene, know of like that happening, unless you and it's like line for line. So I always thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah, like I'm just looking here. There is no real
weird.
Yeah, they don't ever specify how he's just like okay after a while. Like there's lots of people going like, oh, they allude to like maybe some form of surgery or physical therapy, but there's no real. There was never like an explanation. It was just like, oh, he's just fixed all of a sudden.
Well, when we get to it, the 3, but I want to mention too that like
now you gotta die. Those are the rules.
all the rules is my favorite thing when Randy has to go through all the rules and explain. That's what makes it so meta, which we should have mentioned on the first one. But essentially, that Stu's character was actually in a scene in this movie in the background. So he was,
and that's something that a lot of people don't know.
And he might have been he got paid for it too, and even got paid for the third one, because we'll talk about what the theories are based on that, which is actually fairly cool. Yep. The kills were cool in this one. There's a lot of fun stuff. Do you have anything else? Should we lead it into the kind of climax? Because I feel like that's also a very fun thing. But like the Cotton Weary character, this keeps you guessing the whole time, and
yeah,
even like Dewey getting stabbed. And then Cotton's got the blood on his hand. He's like, I found Dewey. It's like, did you though? Like, it does keep you guessing.
There's a couple of different things actually. Something that someone pointed out on Reddit. So, you remember the scene in the film class where Randy corrects? I think it's actually Mickey, who says no, it's not. It's the other guy from like fucking Dawson's Creek or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's another guy in the background. They're like having a conversation about movies and sequels and whatever. And Randy corrects the dude and says that it's a quote from Aliens from 1986. He corrects him and says, it's "get away from her, you bitch." Do you remember that?
I think so, yeah.
The guy says, "stay away from her, you bitch." And then Randy corrects him. He's like, I believe the line is actually "get away from her, you bitch." And they all laugh.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to show like Randy's so clever, he knows all the little specific minute details. So something really funny about that, and I actually went and checked this, and this is actually true. Randy was actually wrong.
What?
The film student was right, which is kind of weird because Randy's supposed to be like the film expert, so he actually got the wording wrong. The dude who said the first.
I wonder
line.
why they kept that in.
I don't know. I don't even know if anybody noticed that, or maybe they got mixed up between "get out" and "stay out." And it was meant to be the other way around, and they just never realized. But it was only like, I only seen that thing on Reddit, like it was only posted a couple of years ago where someone was like, I don't know why, but that didn't sit right with me. And I went back and checked that scene, and they actually got that backwards, and Randy is actually completely wrong.
It is weird considering his knowledge. And that's, I agree with some other people. That's like, Scream 2 to me is the one where Randy dies. Like, it is, I love Jamie Kennedy. Specifically, what made me love Jamie Kennedy? Like, I will watch whatever he's in, even that stupid Mask movie. I've watched that at least twice in my life. But like,
so bad.
Why have you never seen it? It's really bad.
You know, it's so bad. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's really bad. But what made me like Jamie Kennedy, even just as an actor, for anything, it was these movies. Like, and that's what made me, I'll watch this because he's in it or whatever, right? Like, and now I like him more because of his fucking views on the government and stuff like that. But like, this is the one where Randy dies, and that scene where they're in the park is so iconic to me. And like, then when everyone started having cell phones, so it was more of a thing, and it's so funny to imagine because kids will never understand what it's like to have like a shitty cell phone, a flip phone where you're like, you have the T9 shit where I had to be like, 1, 2, 3, and then I get to H, and then it's like 1, 2, and got to E, and then and you have to do that. You have to click the numbers, and that's how you read text. And I remember the first time we used to use MSN all the time. We're always like typing out stuff where it's like, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you online?" And then you see if your friend wants to hang out because they started being obsolete to call them. Like, "Do you want to hang out?" It was like you do it over MSN. And then when cell phones came into the thing, and I was like, and I no wonder I have carpal tunnel. When I was like, I can talk to people now like MSN. Over the phone, but then you would get charged every fucking time you sent a text message. Hey, you have to like minimize it. Want to hang out like really quick and be like, yes.
That's also another thing where it's such a timestamp in history as well.
It is. So I want to mention it.
Really is like a lot of the stuff that are that's in that. There's a couple of things actually that I noticed while I was rewatching number 2. I was looking, obviously, like both of us know who the killers are at the end while we're rewatching it. So I went in with the I guess with the intention of trying to look closer at the movie at the specific villains to see could I see any little tells
I did that
or any
too.
little things that were put in there. And there's two things that I noticed, whether these are actually things that were put in it on purpose or it was just something I just fucking came up with in my head, and I was like, yeah, that's definitely a clue. So before Randy gets killed, you were just talking about it there, the killer tells him that he'll never get the girl. Okay.
Yeah. It pisses him off.
And if you remember back to the scene I talked about a second ago where they're in the film class, Randy says at the end when he's walking out, he's like, I'd let the geek get the girl. And he sprays
the Banaka or wherever the fuck he has.
And I thought maybe then that might allude to the suggestion that the killer was a classmate of his. Because why would he reference that specifically about like, yeah, you're never going to get the girl, or the geek is never going to get the girl, Randy. And he had said that in like 2 scenes previous.
I know.
Mickey was sitting in that classroom.
Class. And that's what made me think of it. I was rewatching it last night. I was like, Mickey is the killer. And it's at the part right now where Michelle Gellar is getting chased. And there's one scene I always remember, obviously. Just a scary movie. It's like she's throwing shit down him in the movie, in Scream 2. And then in Scary Movie, it's like the piano and shit. But to me, I'm like, now I was watching out for who would have been the killer. Because if you think about it, when we get to the ending, and Billy's mother, like, it's such an iconic thing. I want to talk really in depth about that. But it would have to have been Mickey doing that, because you see him book it, like running after Sarah Michelle Gellar. You can see him in his boots and he's like running as fast as he fucking can. And then even she's throwing shit at him. You'd have to be a strong male. Fuck gender roles. You'd have to be somebody who had the capacity to be able to easily like ragdoll fucking women and shit in some scenes.
You're going to have to excuse as well as at some points when I'm talking, people might hear my dickhead dog in the background.
I haven't heard it yet, so it's fine. I'm surprised mine's not
barking. Stab him in a few minutes if he doesn't shut the fuck up.
It's fine.
There's another scene as well that I noticed, the hospital scene, where Mickey is talking to Sydney. Remember after that party at the fucking Omega Beta Zeta or whatever it's called?
Yeah, Omega Beta Zeta.
He gets his arm cut. And Mickey is sitting beside Sydney and he's doing this really weird. It reminds me of Billy Loomis. He has that weird, like, he's like looking up kind of at her. And
after he gets cut?
After Derek gets cut, yeah.
I'm right at that. I'm almost at that scene. Fuck.
They're in the hospital, I think, at that point. And Mickey is sitting beside Sydney and they're just talking. And then he asks, he says to Sydney, why would Derek go back into the house?
Yeah.
And the strange thing I found about that was nobody else is there. Only Sydney, Derek, and Ghostface. So how the fuck would Mickey know that he went back in after he came out?
I know. Yeah, weird. I'm watching that scene right now because he's like sitting beside her, like creepily, like
with that fucking weird ass fucking.
What are you doing, bro? And his hair looks like my hair right now.
It's like fucking all sticking up.
Yeah, what else is Timely? I'm gonna look that up because like
have a look at her there when he says that to her, she looks at him with this weird expression. Now I didn't notice that.
Oh yeah, he does. Like he's like almost rolling his eyes up at her.
Yeah, weird. I remember he was in the remake of The Crazies.
Was that any good? Because I've maybe seen The Crazies once in my life. The original, like I don't even think I saw the first one at least once or twice. I wouldn't. There's some movies where because obviously with the advent of us connecting and doing these crossover shows together, essentially, as you coming on, we're essentially sharing a network in some regard now. And like, there's always things that I'm like, I need to do this as a podcast. And to be honest, that's what we say. Like, I think this will pick up, and the people that enjoy this stuff, this drives me. I will do this if fucking 5 people listen, let alone thousands. So
same as.
Oh, he's in Go, A Perfect Getaway. That's actually something I would like to cover. I actually like that film a lot. That's fucking. He's been in tons of shit. He's a pretty good actor. And for him to be like, to lead up to this stuff, right? And this is why it's definitely Mrs. Loomis, which is such a fucking genius move. In this movie, at least, we'll discuss the next one soon, but like, because I, now watching stuff back about Scream 3, I've always really liked it, but I'm like, now it's making make sense of some of the plot hole stuff. But having her as the killer, it makes sense when, you know, when she stabs fucking Randy. You know what I mean? Like when it would make sense it would be her because she starts losing her mind. The fact that it's so convenient that he's right beside the news van of her news van, like this.
What did you just say? Was that a negative, disparaging remark about my son?
About my
Billy? No, Billy was a good boy. Billy was perfect. You did a bang-up job, Mrs. Loomis. Not wise to patronize someone with a gun, Sydney. Randy spoke poorly of Billy, and I got a little knife happy.
See, it's like, was she actually going to do it though? Was she actually going to kill Randy? Because maybe she wasn't at that point. Maybe that wasn't the plan. And then he was a pathetic fucking mama's boy or whatever he says. And then she just like loses it and maybe breaks through this thing where she's like, fuck it. He's right in front of the van right now if he wants to keep doing this. And then she like just... Because it's crazy the fact that she is the one that kills Randy and then leaves the costume there. And then somehow they obviously have another costume. Weird.
How do you think they rate as Ghostface reveals?
People are so like, I don't know, because I'll tell you my original consensus or whatever, my thoughts about how I rated these movies. It went 1, 3, 1, 3, 2, 5, 4, 6, 4, 5 or whatever, right? But now it's starting to change where I can't decide anymore. Where now I think it's 1, 2, maybe even like there's, I don't know. I think 4 it's its own thing in some way. So it's like, I don't know how to rate these because I equally enjoy them all. And the more I watch them, the more I enjoy them. And when we talk about 5, I'm going to really dissect of what my initial thoughts were and how it's kind of grown on me. But if we're going to bring it to that, as a kid, remember fucking loving it. Him, when I remember not knowing, I like loved these films because these were like horror movies. I watched Nightmare on Elm Street and all the like Friday the 13th is always the really enjoyable taboo thing. I was watching it too young, but this was something different for me. You know?
Yeah, and like, you know, at least for me anyway, your first time seeing these.
Oh, Randy, all bloody. That's cool.
It was so hard to actually know. There was so many red herrings. There was so many different things. It was like next to impossible to actually.
I never fucking guessed the news reporter.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I skipped to the scene where Gail comes out after Cotton's caught with the blood in his hands, and then fucking goddamn Betty Salt or Debbie Salt is on the phone. Weird, right around the same time, right? And she is
a mental looking bitch. Like if you look at her in that image there on the bottom right hand of the screen, like I don't know, there's just something about her eyes and her like expression.
The fucking chick from Roseanne, she was the one mom in Roseanne. Is that not true? Right? I'm right. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure. Let me go check that. Where are you? And I loved Laurie Metcalf. Yeah, she was on Roseanne. Yeah, Roseanne. I knew it. She was just like this nice mom. And oh man. Okay, I'll tell you what I think after. Tell me what you think about the ending, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, like very much like you. I definitely enjoy it. Even still now, there was a period of time I think where I felt like the reveal of Mickey was quite weak. I don't know, certain aspects of it. I felt like, I think at one point I used to feel like they kind of discredited him by being like, oh, you know, Nancy fucking manipulated him or whatever, or just used him like a pawn.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, he's like, he can't be that dumb. But I get it. I get what the kind of overarching thing was supposed to be, where like she had her own thing in her head, and she was willing to do whatever. Like, she was willing to just let him be the scapegoat and be like, yeah, motherfucker.
Which is crazy. Because I liked kind of the reveal of like him taking off the mask, and then he's got the head wound from when they crash in the car, which is also a fun, that one. It's just, there's the fucking scene where it's like the tension, which I liked. Number 6 did a really good job at tension, and how she's crawling through the window, and then Haley has to crawl through the window, which is crazy because that's also, she could have been a killer in the alternate versions.
I loved that scene.
And then, yeah, and it's a very good scene. And I just find it funny when she's like, is he dead? Is he there? Is he dead? And then she's just like by herself by these like things. Then he pops out of by this construction stuff. And then he pops right out and fucking murders her ass. But to me, the reveal was pretty good to me because I'm watching her. I skipped it to where it is, and how Derek's tied up, and then it start to be like very familiar, reminiscent. He's only up there essentially because he got like the college kids did it. Because at the beginning I thought he was cut up when I first watched it as a kid, but it's just lipstick. And then he's like, I always like the scene where it's like, and history repeats itself. And he's like got the knife in his hand, and then he lifts up the mask, and you see the head gash, and then he sells it like that it's actually Derek also, which I think is fucking smart. I always like that because he's like, fuck you. Like in like, it's like, I was waiting on your ass. It's so good.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best sequels. And I could see, look, for some people, I could see the argument of it, like, you know, being more fun, or some people think it's better than the original. Yeah. I could definitely see that argument in some ways, because it is, to me anyway, just as iconic. I can't really fault that many things about it. Do you want to get into maybe some of the alternate versions?
Before we finally get to the closing, I want to mention, people hate this scene, but to me it makes it's part of the film, and I love it. I think I love you. Oh, I think I love you. And when he's like doing the, I've read that people don't like that and make fun of it. I still love it to this day. I remember liking it as a kid and it's just part of the film that needs to be in it for it to be Scream 2.
Yeah.
And he gets on the table doing the Tom Cruise.
Yeah, like I remember it being like really like bizarre and random, and you're kind of going, this is like, it's like, you know, when the pacing of a song completely changes. And it kind of felt like that, but I can see at the same time what they were going for. And like, I think another thing that helped it, I listened to Wes Craven talk about this. They actually had Jerry O'Connell go in afterwards and like do the song, and they were going to loop it over the video.
Oh, that's funny.
And then when they listened to what it sounded like when he actually sang it on set, they were like, there was something just a bit off, and the fact that like he changes key about 20 times throughout the song.
Yeah, it's bad.
And like the editor, Patrick Lucia, he was talking about that. He was like, we purposely left it where he was like completely like out of sync with any sort of beat or anything on purpose, because that's probably how it would have went if some dude just jumped up on a table in the cafeteria.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it makes it part of the film. And that's something I had to at least talk about, because I've heard, seen people shit on it. I'm trying to remember, like, okay, what things did I take from this movie? But let's break down the ending first before we get to the alternative endings. Because like Mickey's reveal, when I watched it, I was really stoned. I think I had a couple drinks when I fucking watched it the first time in the last week, and Mickey like acting crazy, you know, alluding to the fact that it could be Derek too. And when he shoots him, I remember actually like, I didn't tear up, but I remember getting into the emotions a bit of like, she truly believes in like, and then when she doesn't know anymore and she loved him, it's the same thing. Now, another guy that I fell for and loved and cared about is a true psychopath. And then when Mickey shoots him, and also that's what was lacking from the third one, is a lot of bloody good kills, but even the shotgun wound into his chest is well done. Or not shotgun, the handgun, like I think it's like a 9mm into his chest.
Very well done, yeah.
and it's like hits, and then the blood starts coming out, and it's kind of perfect. And then he's like, I would never hurt you. And then he dies. I was like, it makes a bigger mark, I think, for them to kill him, especially when you find out that it's not him also.
Yeah, and I think when we get into the final part of that original trilogy, there's some very vague, like, overarching influence I think some of those characters still have on Sydney.
Yeah.
When we fast forward into number 3, there's a couple of little things I think that were cited as influences for her behaviour.
Yeah.
From things that Mickey had done or her relationship with Derek.
I know, imagine doing this again. This is like,
I know, yeah.
Holy fuck. I really like the reveal. I'm just watching it now. Of when she comes to the door and you think it's Gail, and then you see her step in, and you're kind of confused because I remember legitimately being confused, being like, "What? Who is this bitch?" And then it's like Mrs. Loomis. I'll do it again because when fucking he's like, Billy's mother, and he's like just up in the air. It's it makes the scene. And then you're like, what?
Yeah, because they do that whole thing where they kind of earlier on in the movie when she's like being like some sort of like fangirl to Gail. And Gail is like, she's like, oh, I was the one that was up the front asking all the questions. And she's like, oh yeah, I thought I recognized you, all right. And apparently there was more going to be made of that throwaway comment she made, where they were going to explain kind of about, oh, well, she had like all this plastic surgery and she had liposuction and this happened and that happened. They were going to kind of explain a little bit more how or why the legacy characters didn't recognize her.
Yeah, weird.
Because she was obviously...
Yeah, well, it makes sense because she said because she looks different. They at least allude to it in the ending scene. But then like I heard that like Neve Campbell was also supposed to be like, oh, she looks familiar or some shit like that, and kind of hint that she kind of is recognized if to be more of a punch at the end. But even her, like when she shoots Mickey, that's also a fucking shocking scene because like you don't think it's gonna go that way, in some regard. And how he blames it on the movies. He's like, I want to get caught. Billy was fucking a psychotic fuck that didn't want to get caught. He's like, Mickey wants to get caught.
Which I can kind of believe. You know, I can believe that somebody would be that psychotic or be that fucking deranged. And then I can also see the flip side of it where, you know, Nancy was probably manipulating him, going like, yeah, we're going to do this really cool thing and we're going to like, you know, we're going to get you famous and...
We'll get they met on
do this, but in actual fact, she's sitting there going, "You dumb motherfucker! I'm going to use you to get my revenge, and then I'm going to frame you, and I'm going to bounce."
Which is crazy because that whole initial shot is fucking crazy, and then obviously like
my motive isn't as 90s as Mickey's. Mine is just good old-fashioned revenge. You killed my son, and now I kill you, and I can't think of anything more rational.
That shit, her like motive thing, you killed my son. Like, it's so impactful. I literally got chills listening to that again. Because I'm watching, like, I can see the scene.
What I loved about these original ones especially was there really was nobody safe. It was like, okay, we had these two people that worked together as Ghostface, and you know, they're killing all these different characters. Yeah. When in actual fact, they're not really working together at all. No. Both of them have two completely different ideas of what they're doing. And in actual fact, one of them is manipulating the other and using him. And he has no idea that she's going to turn around and shoot him and be like, well, I'm framing you for the whole thing and I'm going to get my revenge. You're going to take the fall and I'm going to disappear off into the sunset.
It's kind of fucking smart. And there's so many good things when she says that line about her motive. And she's like, in her face with the gun, and they're like face to face. It makes it so much more intimate of like, she's a psychotic mother, lost her son that she left and maybe regretted or whatever, right? And then comes back like, and he dies, so she even regrets it more, has this, and that drives people to murder sometimes, is like this idea of regret in like losing somebody that you didn't maybe put as much effort into as you should have to, and he maybe would have been so psychotic. And then that this her being so close in the face of the person who murdered her son, but also Sydney in the face of her murderer's mom, is such a crazy scene that she backs up and says, "You murdered my son," and like puts the gun like directly at her. It's just like, and there's always points in these movies where I'm like, okay, they could have done this. Even the first one, like there's scenes if they could have maybe got away with this if they weren't so crazy. Like if Billy never stabbed Stu so deep, they possibly they could have got away with it. Yeah. If they didn't get distracted with the fucking motive of always being like having to tell you, but it plays into the whole meta-ness of this movie, being aware of itself.
And I think we've done a good job here, and especially you with this part, of breaking it down to its rawest form of like it wasn't just your simple like generic, oh, we're kind of going to just do the same thing as the first one where we're going to have two killers and, you know, one of them is going to be crazy and the other one's just going to be like his mum and that's it. Anyway. And then it's like, oh, okay, in part 3 we're going to have his dad resurrected, or we're going to get some other rant. You know what I mean? There is more to it, like, and you can tell that they really did think about what was going on. I think the way you've just explained her story arc, at face value, maybe if you weren't really paying much attention or didn't care, you would probably just be like, all right, okay, yeah, it's his mother just came back and she's like crazy. Oh wow, I don't really care. That doesn't really make any difference to me. But then when you actually look at the whole trilogy and you find out all those other little things that happened in between in all these different timelines.
Yeah, it's a fucking crazy thing. And I find that even on the Own Show of the, the change in my life of like, I'm not drinking as much on the show. I'm more sober in life because alcohol, like I always kept it at bay, but I drank a lot. I was drinking all the time. I still drink a fair amount, but even like using psychedelics, and it can regrow brain cells and allow your brain, especially psilocybin, to change. I find that even Billy is seeing this weird change in me. You'll hear it on the chemtrails episode that will get released fairly soon. And how I kind of have, and fans will hear this if they're a fan of Strange Brew, but now I'm able to like, I analyze things in a different way than I've ever thought before, and I am trying to construct my ideas where other people would think this way and not be able to word it. You know, even in the serial killer episodes, the alien episodes. Yeah. And you've seen even on the Shag Harbor UFO episode, we're talking about stuff like that. Like this, that the idea of diving into some of the stuff. This is why I love analyzing these movies, because I am fascinated by horror movies, and the ending where like Cotton Weary pops in and all these like good things that they like added that change things in the ending to always make you guess is fucking genius.
And that was something to get into, like the idea of like alternate endings and different things. Like obviously you mentioned that right at the start of this, there was a version where Dewey was the killer or whatever, but
nuts.
I'm assuming you've heard about this as well, but
yes.
The original idea or whatever, where they had 4 different killers. So you had Nancy Loomis was still going to be a thing. Then you had Cotton Weary. You had Hallie, which is the roommate. Mm-hmm. And then you had Derek, which is the boyfriend. And so the whole story of it was like, I suppose a bare bones version of it. You can find like a way more fleshed out version. So Derek and Hallie apparently meet on a message board full of like Ghostface serial killer fanatics. Mm-hmm. They want to make their own sequel. It's kind of a generic like thing.
It's kind of cool though.
Yeah, but at the same time, I could kind of see, and especially I think it's even like nowadays, it's probably even more relevant.
It reminds me of the 5th one,
and like
the message board thing.
Yeah, and like I could definitely see that being the thing. And there's been plenty of like real murder cases where like motherfuckers have been like on forums and on different places. saying like tons of fucked up shit and all, and then they end up like chopping somebody up or whatever.
Yeah,
That
if you
dude.
want, we can talk about the Craigslist killer one day.
Yeah, and isn't there a dude who was on some shit or something, and didn't he offer himself up to be eaten or something?
Yeah, the guy eats his penis. It's great.
and it's just
Like his name is like fucking some Ahmad. It's a German or Austrian dude. And there's a fetish where people like to be eaten and people like to eat, and they drugged up the guy, and then they like started cutting off pieces of him, and the guy cut off his dick, and they tried eating his dick together.
Like that is so
not fucked up.
Like,
sorry, but like that, if you kind of like stuff like that, go to Stranger Podcast because we talk about some fucked up shit.
We do. So yeah, they wanted to make their own sequel. Then that's where the character of Nancy comes in again.
It's so
uses them. She uses them to help her revenge plot.
Mm-hmm.
Then at the end of the movie, kind of a similar kind of a thing to a degree, she ends up killing both of them. She shoots both of them.
Which is fucking nuts. Because like somebody's tied up and they get free, and then it leads up to like this shit, which is nuts.
So she uses them basically for the whole film, and then she ends up killing both of them. So then from that point, then, you know, she's kind of, I think, in the script, you know, she's there with the gun or whatever. She's like, I'm just about to get away with it now. I'm going to kill Sydney, and I'm going to kill whoever else is here, and I'm going to ride off into the sunset, and it's all worked out. And it's going to look like Hallie and Derek were the ones that done it all.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, then Cotton Weary comes out, and he saves Gail from being killed by Nancy. Then... So he, from what I gather, he kills Nancy in the process and saves Gail. And then him and Gail like embrace each other or whatever. And like she's like, oh, you know, I can't believe it or whatever sort of shit that they're having. And he looks like the hero. Everything is all nice and great. And while he's hugging her, then he pulls out a knife and stabs Gail to death. And then he reveals then that he like leaned into that whole, you know, he was painted as the bad guy or whatever, and he was like, well, you know, if that's the only way I can get the spotlight or whatever, I guess that's what I have to do.
Because he seems like obsessed with it. And that's what was happening at the end also, where Nancy offers him up that like deal, like you know, and then you can see him puzzle on it. And then he's like, afterwards, obviously, he's like, you know, I would never hurt you. But you can see him thinking of like, you know, should I do this? Yep. Like, you know, like, and then it's crazy when it's like that Diane Sawyer's interview is looking pretty good right now, Sid, or whatever. And then she is like, consider it done. Bam! Fucking nuts. Like, such a good ending to me. I wish that they filmed these alternate, at least one of them, filmed it. It would have been fucking cool, just as an extra thing, like an extra thing to have later on in life on the DVD. Like, they should have thought about that, because I don't know, it wouldn't have taken that long. Like in retro, I know whatever its shots take forever, but the Cotton Weary character is very interesting, because I'm at the end of it right now as we bring it into Scream 3, and whatever, I can't remember his name because I like him. And a lot of these actors or actresses, but they're called actors, I genuinely like because of these movies, of why I would watch stuff with them if I wanted to. But, you know, like, I was a big fan of Friends. I feel like a lot of people were. It's a good, during the pandemic, I was off for like a month, and I got drunk on wine, and me and Chelsea watched it all day, and I was enjoying myself.
Oh, yeah, same. I feel like half the world done that at that point.
Yeah, it's like, why not?
Did you know as well, actually, final little thing on this, that the film originally was supposed to end with a shot of another Ghostface watching over the college campus from the bell tower. And that was going to be the last shot, and then it was going to cut off. You were going to see...
Oh, because I just saw that scene. The weird.
They were going to show like a silhouette or whatever, and you were going to see the white face kind of hidden in the shadows looking down over the college campus from the top of like the bell tower on the college. Yeah, because we'll get to it, because on the third one of the whole connection to Stu, because... And that's like, they
that's
reckon
part of
that...
two, I have heard.
there's speculation to do with him, or potentially maybe that's who ends up being revealed as the killer in number 3,
which would have been Roman.
That he was around at that point, which I don't know if I wanted him tied into it that much. No. I kind of want to be its own motive and its own thing. Now, when you look at it, I suppose Roman did set the entire thing in motion when we get to number 3 in a second, and we get revealed what actually happened. Which
is crazy, because I really liked it when I was younger, but then I watched something on it, and it just persuaded me to think a different thing. So let's get into this. I do think that without the down the dusty ride, these movies are not going to be the same without that. It's
there's so many little things that have just become part of that. All
right, I'm gonna watch it now. I'm putting Scream through. It's crazy how a lot of them I didn't notice, but it makes sense and entertaining the whole time. All of them mostly. It's is that they're all almost 2 hours. The third one is the running time is 1 hour and 56 minutes. And that's with credits.
Which is relatively long when you think about it.
But something that kept your attention.
Normally a movie like that, they can barely push out 80 minutes. And it's we're really clutching here. We don't have anything else.
The one thing too is I don't know. It's just I find that nowadays movies are too long. Where it's I can't sit through them. Some of them we tried to watch that Babylon movie that all the critics are praising, and it was just about there's a weird party scene in it. It's just I don't know. There's no substance to it as much as I thought there would be, and we got bored. So this is fucking boring. You have to keep my attention, and Scream does well at that because it always keeps you guessing. And you want to discuss the iconic? Obviously, with every movie, there's an iconic intro scene.
Yeah, well, I suppose, before we get to the intro, so the events of this story are set 3 years after Scream 2. And it follows Sidney Prescott, who has gone into self-imposed isolation following the events of the previous 2 movies, but is drawn to Hollywood after a new Ghostface begins killing the cast of a film within a film, Stab 3. Directed by Wes Craven once again, edited by Patrick Lussier, but not written by Kevin Williamson. He had a vague, I think, treatment at one point, and he was, super busy with Dawson's Creek and all these different other things.
Dawson's Creek.
So it ended up being predominantly written by a guy by the name of Aaron Kruger, which is kind of interesting. This one had a budget of $40 million. But it made $34 million on opening weekend. It was screened in 3,467 screens in the States, which, from what I know, set a record for an opening weekend for the number of screens in the United States of America that has only been surpassed by the original Harry Potter movie.
What? That's for Scream 3. People were fucking anticipated for this. No, I was gonna say something fucking. It is. I don't know. There's so many Scream 3 is I really like it, but that there is I like it more than I should in a way. But the guy that when I watched the video, that kind of made me not sway my opinion. It made me think things I maybe didn't notice of how there's not as much brutal kills. There's stuff like that where they cut stuff out, and I was gonna say that the guy that wrote the script, they had this was gonna be a fucking almost a different movie. There's so many different ways and avenues they were gonna go with this, and then they had this guy write it in 6 weeks, and it was all because of Bob Weinstein, and he couldn't wait. He couldn't wait till fucking Williamson was available, which I think. We get what we get. I will say that's my motto on your show is we get what we get, enjoy what we have for now. It's cinema. You're just supposed to enjoy it and try to weed through the mind control tactics that are used in it to brainwash the world. But there you get what you get. So, but the thing is, he couldn't wait, so they had this guy write the script in no time, which is why there is indiscrepancies in this.
And there was a female writer as well, I think, that was brought in at the time. And it was just like, I think lots of different people.
Oh, the chick supposedly knew Scream 1 and 2, which was, she was just to do any edits after he was done, which is crazy.
There's a quote here from Aaron Kruger, who was the one who wrote most of the script. He said, some of Kevin's ideas are still in there. His treatment had to do with the same thing that the movie does now, which is the filming of Stab 3. His original treatment had the story taking place, however, in Woodsboro. I come on and I said, instead of bringing Hollywood to Woodsboro, let's take these characters from there to Hollywood and give them a bigger haunted house to run around in.
I kind of like that, though.
He came out and said, about people who were, like what you said there, where it's like less graphic and it's a bit more kooky. He said the studio was wanting to do it completely bloodless with no violence at all. Then Wes had come in and said, be serious, guys. Either we make a Scream movie or we're going to call it something else completely and we're not doing Scream 3.
No, because it has to. Why do they want to know why they didn't want to do this? Because of fucking Columbine. Because of course they blame Columbine on like movies and music. They blamed it on fucking Marilyn Manson. Give me a fucking break. If these kids were psychotic and they weren't CIA agents actually put in place to orchestrate a gun grab to pressure citizens in the United States to give up their guns so that they could have a totalitarianism government, if that's not the case, then they were just two crazy kids. And there is people that watch the horror movies a million times, or people that get like a molested or have an abusive family and never hurt anybody. Obviously, abuse does replicate in like further down the road. Abuse leads to abuse most times, but it doesn't mean that it is necessarily true. Like the fact that they got to fucking put it on Columbine, like, and Marilyn Manson's like, man, what the fuck? When you see those interviews, and I'm not vindicating Marilyn Manson because I don't necessarily know what he's done now, and obviously all this stuff's being exposed, or is it? And I joked on the podcast, I was like, Billy, I was like, all my fucking people I love are turning into predators. And Billy's like, the shoe fits. And I was like, look at you. He's like wearing a fucking suit and tie pretty much through an episode. I was like, what are you fucking doing? But like, he's wearing like a dress shirt. We're doing the Valentine's Day special, but like that, a lot of these people, like, in his interview was good because he's like, I didn't like you can't blame this on me and my music. These kids had plans in place, and there was something deeper on the surface, and then that's why they didn't want to show all this violence in this movie. Yeah,
and I seen a thing actually about Kevin Williamson. Like, he had so many different projects, like we were talking about, and then he eventually he was able to direct that Teaching Mrs. Tingle or whatever he'd been working on since the first Scream.
Whatever that is. And, sounds like a fucking exotic.
Yeah, it sounds a bit fucking weird.
Porno.
And when he told, I think he went into like Bob Weinstein in his office or whatever and told him, like, the kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob was like, oh, okay, cool. So you won't have time then to make Scream 3, no? And he was like, no, probably not. And like, down the line I will. But you're probably looking at, like, I don't know, like 18, 24 months.
Oh, that's not that bad.
And then he was like, he was like, at a minimum before I can write the script.
Yeah.
And flesh it out. So he was looking at that thing going, right, so you're talking like a 1.5 to 2 years before you're going to write the script, which is going to push it out by however many more months. And then before I can get funding and filming, we're probably talking like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And I think Bob went, all right, okay, cool. Well, you can expect to hear from my lawyers anyway, and we'll settle it in court. We'll have a nice little lawsuit
because they would have to do the rights, right?
Yeah. So the way out of that then was he signed some sort of a deal to write a different movie for the Weinsteins, which ended up being that movie I think that came out in 2005 called Cursed.
Weird. Which one?
Yeah,
with Christina Ricci.
I'm assuming so.
Is that it? Because I feel like people didn't like the movie, but I feel like I liked it for what it was at the time. Is this?
Cursed movie 2004.
Cursed.
All right, saying that.
I think this is.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
that's
Christina, and she's a werewolf.
Yeah. So that's the movie that he wrote to get himself out of. the whole issue.
Oh yeah, it's a Wes Craven film, which is kind of cool. It's directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. So that's
and edited by Patrick Lussier, who I actually had a chance to talk to him about that as well. That core team worked together on so many projects.
That's kind of cool. Did you like Cursed? I feel like I liked it when I was a kid. I haven't watched it in a while.
I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I feel like I did like it at whatever point I had saw it.
Oh, what? There's there's that kid from Facebook movie, isn't it? I didn't know that. What? And the guy from fucking Animal Kingdom. Wow, I gotta go away and watch this fucking shit. That's kind of cool. I think that's the guy from Animal Kingdom. I might be wrong.
There's the mansion in the movie that's owned by John Milton or whatever.
Yeah,
is actually
Which one, in Cursed or in fucking Scream? Scream in
3.
In the ending, right?
Yeah, the mansion is actually from. It was also used in Halloween H2O.
Wow, that terrible movie. I know people get shit at me. When we the commentary's out now, we have to release Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Okay? It's got to be done. It's got to be out.
We have to.
Maybe
I need to get all that shit sorted.
We need to get that out because I feel like that's fucking. It'll be entertaining for the people that really don't like that movie. But like, there's fucking.
Roger Corman has a cameo on this as a Sunrise Studios executive.
I saw that. I saw that too. But like, did you see about that's what I want to bring up before we like get any further was the opening scene. Did you see the alternative version of why it explains why Sid is in isolation? Did you see that? No,
I don't think so.
Isn't this? Listen to this. So the original scene
is this to do with Mickey?
No, in the original scene, get this. It's actually supposed to be Sydney. And Ghostface kind of essentially shows up, and you know it's just like how they show the scene where like people are fucking with her in number 2, where they're calling her and stuff like that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And then she shoots Ghostface or something like that, or kills him or hurts him. Yeah, I think she kills him or at least hurts him. And if she finds out it was a fan of like the Stab movies, which is crazy and would have explained more into her isolation. I do like the Cotton Weary opening scene a lot because it shows that he has
good.
It shows that he has the voice changer thing that is able to mimic anybody's voice as long as you got their vocal patterns. Which I don't know how they had this technology, but it's cool.
I love that opening scene. I don't care what anybody says. I love that opening scene.
When he's like, "It's me, baby," or whatever, like it's. And then she's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just kidding around. I want to fucking cut your throat. Whatever he says. Like, it's fucking sick.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it's just a joke or whatever, baby. It's our Stab game or something like that. And then he's like, and then he just starts screaming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think that alludes to what you said earlier about, and it was really well done, actually, that I can't remember the guy's name that plays Cotton Weary. Lev something.
I'll look
some weird fucking name. Lev Schreiber or something like that.
Oh, Les Schreiber?
Something like that. But he actually managed to kind of, obviously with his own voice, match that kind of Ghostface thing that you were talking about earlier, where he goes from being like, no, and then goes into like
psycho.
Kind of being, yeah.
I don't mind. Oh, I'm trying to fucking look up his name. Oh yeah, Lev Schreiber is essentially how it is. I think something like that. He's really good in the second movie of like acting like 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 in talking to Sid when she has the cops and stuff like that. In the second one, where like
the bit in the library and all.
Yeah, like
I remember the bit in the library in number 2. I was like, it's definitely him.
I know, yeah, because you think that like he's like losing his mind and be like, like you fucking, what did, and he's like creeping on her, which he shouldn't be doing if you think that you don't want to go back to jail because they thought you did some shit already, and then I think it's appropriate for them to kill him off, but it would have been cool to see it more later on. But it was an impactful. It is a weird side character that they chose to kill off, but it makes sense to me. But that was something that they weren't going to originally do.
the I don't know. For me, I like this movie as much as I like the rest of them. I think, look, while I know that this is probably the weakest out of the original trilogy, there's something about it that still gets me. I still enjoy it.
Me too. And like, this is one like I rated as my number 2, but now it's just pretty much 2 and 3 are kind of tied because I saw this one. What year did this release?
2000.
So I was 9. So this essentially would have came out in theaters. I would have been pretty young. It would have went to VHS, and then me and my friend would have rented it. So like it would have been at a time where I would have saw it fairly soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I don't know, I feel like especially for its time as well, being in the year 2000, like the fact that they were showing you like a film set and this movie was being filmed while we were watching a movie as well. It was quite you have to remember this is 23 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like really ahead of its time. Like even the scene where I can't remember the actress's name. You remember she goes to the studio and she's doing like a script read with Robin?
Jenny McCarthy, the one that doesn't like the poisonous shots.
And it's just like, it's so, I love that scene and just like the dialogue.
Yeah, her like funny character, like just like that.
Like, she's like, oh, those lines are not in in my script, and he's like, and he says, so I can't remember what he says back to her, and she's like, don't tell me there was another fucking rewrite again.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, this is bullshit all the time. And he was like, and he says to her, he's like, oh no, it's not just a rewrite or a new script, it's a whole new movie. And like she's like giving out and going crazy, and then like he starts saying all shit like I can't remember what her character's name is. Remember, and he's like she's gonna get gutted like a fucking fish or something like that.
Yeah.
And she goes into the prop room and she's hiding between all the Ghostface costumes.
Yeah, and then you see him step out, and like I like that scene too, and some of the dialogue, and it does maybe like hint at the fact that this was messed around with so much. But I don't know if it was the like Hollywood backdrop kind of made it a little more fun. I agree that, and that how nostalgic and weird is it that it makes it so meta, right? It kind of points to like that it's on a set being filmed and the actors are acting as the actor. It's fucking like a weird thing in itself. And like Dewey's character as like the bodyguard type of dude, and seeing Gail in her terrible bangs, and seeing it's at right now is
like there's a shit ton of like different versions and ideas that were thrown out there as well over the years for what this could have been. Like there was one of the original treatments had and this is directly, I think, a direct quote from Kevin Williamson of one of his ideas. He said that the killers were basically a fan club of Woodsboro kids that had formed because of Stab 1 and 2. They were all doing the killings, and the big surprise of the movie was when Sidney walked into the house after Ghostface had killed everyone. They all rose up together. None of them were actually dead, and they all planned the whole thing. The motive was their quest for fame. They were trying to stop Sidney's story so they could be their hometown legacy. And then it was going to reveal,
That's
think,
weird.
that Stu was going to be like the overarching villain, and he survived the first movie, and he was masterminding this whole plot from prison. And then they scrapped that whole thing because of Columbine, and then obviously you had said before, like Matthew Lillard has actually gone on record and said, like, I was hired and actually got paid.
Yeah, he got paid, and he says the thing of like it's just a TV. He was stabbed so many times. I just love his fucking character, but
and
then
also like his like, you know, people say like, well, the TV just fell on his head, so he mightn't necessarily die. Like your head mightn't be crushed. But you also forget when the TV fell on his head, he was also electrocuted as well.
And stabbed 1 million times in blood. But the thing is, people can withstand a crazy amount of torture and stuff like that. It's crazy what the human body can endure. Say he's just feeling woozy, he's lost a fair amount of blood, but when the TV drops on his head, it just shocked his body. I always try to justify it because if they could bring him back, those TVs were pretty heavy. It could cut up your face, but if the cops arrive in the time that it shows kind of in the movie, like just right around the time when everything comes to a climax, is like if they could have revived him in some it would have been 0-0, but in actual real life, people have endured just as crazy shit and survived. The guy got shot in the fucking forehead, or one guy got stabbed in his skull, and it didn't go through like where his brain was. It was like in the middle of it or whatever. It survived. That shit's fucking bananas.
And also that original treatment took place solely in Woodsboro. They weren't in Hollywood or anything, and the movie's ending would have taken place in Stu's house again.
I see, and then I almost didn't like that they did that in 5. But that's another talk for another day. Just like not being original, but I think they keep trying to harken back to the. That's what they did kind of in this one with doing literally on the set of the house.
Did you ever hear of like the whole story or that whole idea of Randy potentially still being alive?
No, I want to say one last thing. Someone said that Stu's character, he was just the lackey, couldn't have orchestrated this from jail, but I don't know. He's pretty crazy. You never know.
I mean, stranger things have happened, I suppose. There was an idea actually to have Randy come back in. I know obviously he does in a way come back in number 3, which I think was subtle enough, but it was actually really good, and I love his kind of little sign off towards the end. We get that weird like
I'll see you soon
music in the background, and he's like I'll see some of you guys soon or whatever if you're watching this tape. I obviously didn't make it and all this shit.
I love that
and
tape.
Like to have that music playing in the background, that kind of gives me goosebumps. I'm like, that's that legacy character like nostalgia.
100%. And then even that's cool in the newest movie, spoiler alert, they show his sister, which is crazy. It's so fucking cool that they brought her back just for that little, like, to me, fucking awesome. And that when they are like watching the film, you see like the emotion on the characters' faces where they're like sad and being like, yeah, some of you aren't going to make it. Some of you will die by the end of this, even though that doesn't really happen. But it is. It's such an iconic part of the film that it wouldn't be the same if they left it out.
But that scene where like they look at that videotape where he explains like the rules of the trilogy and whatever. Yeah, that was I think in like the early stages that wasn't even like a thought, and they were gonna have Randy survive his stabbing in Scream 2, and the way they were going to explain it away was that his family had secretly saved him when he got stabbed in the van.
But he looked dead as fuck.
Right, and they had brought his body away like in secrecy, and he was just like, he was classed as like a missing person, so everyone assumed Ghostface like killed him, and he's like,
doesn't even make sense. I don't even like that.
I know, yeah, it does. Like that makes no sense. And apparently, the deeper they got into trying to like expand the idea, I think Wes Craven and everybody were like, "Wow, this is like way too
convoluted." And that's what people say about this fucking movie, is that it's too convoluted. With like even her seeing the ghost of her mother, which is I don't necessarily understand that. It always left a mark with me in this movie of I did not like it. I thought it was something different from the other ones. This is definitely like, it is a lot different than the second one and the first one. And then it's a little bit convoluted, but I don't know, like some of the, but then it's weird because like how would she sees the ghost of her own mother. She's having these hallucinations, so to speak, at the beginning in her like secluded place. And then later on, Roman like kind of teases at that idea and makes her thinks that she hears her, even though beforehand having nightmares about her wouldn't have, it's convoluted. It's kind of messy a little bit.
It is. It's like all over the place. Yeah, like, but again, I do like, there is a lot of things that I do like about it. You know, a lot of people said I don't like the character of Roman. I actually don't mind the character of Roman. I'm just going to recap really quickly for people maybe who don't know the exact ins and outs or whatever. But the entire story is he's the illegitimate son of Maureen Prescott, who was serial raped at a party hosted by John Milton, who we see in Scream
which is
3.
crazy.
Which is like wild now that the Weinsteins were involved in this, and then like that's a whole, it's like,
joke
you
in
like
itself.
fucking did you put that in there? Is that your little inside joke, Bob? Then so there's a whole big thing, like apparently eventually he finds his mother, and you know, she rejects him, and this kind of sets the entire franchise in motion, I suppose.
Which is crazy. It's a cool concept.
It is actually, when you think about it. Like, I know the movie, like, it kind of fell flat a little bit, but that, had it have been done correctly and some of those creases ironed out, that would have been like such a badass ending to a trilogy
to end it right there, and like
to tie it back, like, because there is, I actually don't think that the tie-ins are as far-fetched as some people might think. Like, I mean, after this, he discovers that Maureen's having an affair, and it ends up being with Hank Loomis, who is Billy's dad. He tells Billy, and basically puts it in his head, like, he's like, this is the reason your mother left, is because of this bitch.
Yeah.
So then, you know, Billy kills Maureen, and that sets the stage for basically the entire event of Scream.
And how does he explain again that, like, Billy and Stu, why did they say they did it? Like, so he influenced them to do it because he shows in the home movies, right? He's like, I made little movies myself. That's what happens, right? He shows Billy those movies and be like, and blames her, gets, you know, puts it in Billy and Stu's ear, especially Billy, because Billy was the mastermind to like put this in motion.
Yeah, this was something I wondered. Does Stu have any knowledge of Roman's existence?
I know, maybe not. Which is like
was that a thing, or, you know, was Billy doing what Nancy done to Mickey in number 2?
Yeah.
Where he kind of just brought him along and he was like, okay, you're going to help me. But he didn't tell him like the exact ins and outs of like, okay, well, you know, Sydney's fucking half brother contacted me and showed me footage of my dad fucking her mother, this bitch, and my mom left because of this, and it's a whole big thing.
Yeah, that whole scene of like him psychologically fucking him up, like he actually had a motive. And then just to harken back, you have Stu that literally his motive in the movie was peer pressure. That's only one he gives, which is fucking crazy. So he was just psychotic in his own right. Yeah, it's at the scene with Jenny McCarthy, which she's like getting the phone call. And like one thing I can take from this movie is I do wish the kills were more gory. Even the dude, like I like the house scene when it blows up. I do like that. Because it kind of like the cool like script thing of like them reading it, and it's like all the pace of it, and then the homeboy stays in with the lighter and it's like and smells the gas, and then the flames envelop him and he's just gone. There's not really any big kills in this. It's I like it for what it is, and I liked it a lot when I was a kid.
Something I want to iron out there actually about that scene. A lot of people say about the fact that the electricity was cut off, and how was he getting faxes?
Yeah.
When the electricity is cut off. But if you look in the background, there's like a fixture on the wall, and it's a backup. I can't remember the specific name of the piece of equipment, but basically it would allow faxes to come through, like emergency faxes.
Oh, weird.
Regardless of whether the power was out. So they actually took the time to put that little detail. You can barely see it in the background.
Just in case.
But I've seen lots of people being like, oh, it's so far-fetched, it's fucking bullshit. It's like, at the end of the day, like, we are watching a movie called Scream 3. So, I mean, like, you know, you kind of have to allow for a certain amount of ridiculous stuff. But they did actually put that in there, which I thought was, like really bizarre and weird, but it's kind of a unique...
Yeah, and like it's supposedly what's her name, Angelina, the one chick that plays Sydney, she was supposed to be one of the killers, and they filmed it that way and hinted at her And I was like, because even that scene after where she comes out, she's like, where did you come from? And she's like, he was in the house. And she just acts like seems like kind of crazy. Even at the end where she's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm not getting killed with you B-rated celebrities or whatever the fuck she says.
And like, so they tried to basically confirm Angelina as like a second killer, I suppose, helping Roman. And it was the studio, I think, who were like, we don't really like this, to be honest with you. And the story was supposed to be Sydney would, after a while, originally she would see her or whatever and be like...
And clue in.
Oh, I kind of recognize her, similar to like the Nancy Loomis thing, I suppose, where it's like, oh yeah, I thought you looked familiar, but didn't really know. And then it turns out when she like reveals herself, Sydney thinks back to a stalker that she had in college who became obsessed with her, and she had to go into isolation because of said stalker, which ends up
I heard
being
that
her.
too. It's to me that sounds more convoluted. It's like they seem like really not have a solid idea of what the fuck they wanted to do, and I wonder if Williamson did. And maybe I don't. We got. What if it was going to be worse? I don't know, because it could have been. It would have been interesting to see his take on it. To be honest, I wish, how they really like, we got the Schneider cut, but like, it would be cool to like get that Williamson cut at the time. Like if they somehow like 2 years later filmed it his way, just to have shits and gigs.
And also, Scream 3 is the first and only film in the franchise that has only one killer. If you don't follow the theory, obviously, that Angelina was involved or helped Roman.
It's crazy.
He's the only solo killer.
Kudos to him, because fucking how could he have pulled that off? It would have been extremely hard.
Also, he's the only person in the movie that doesn't die on screen.
Yeah. So,
if you actually look at it, everybody else
you
see, but you don't see him die.
I wrote down a couple of notes when I was watching it. Just like, what did I write down? Because I remember writing, why by the third movie does Sid not have a gun? Why do you not, like, she has fucking pepper spray. Why do you not have a gun in reality? Because I heard that in this one, she was going to be like some Sal Khanna character where she's like fucking bench pressing shit and getting strong.
And you know what, when I heard that, I was envisioning like Laurie Strode. Those newest Halloween movies.
Yeah, me too.
And that didn't really do it for me, to be honest. So
I like the way that they went with it.
Glad.
Can I mention too? Some of the kills are fun. The Hollywood set shit. Dewey getting hit in the head with the knife.
And I think that wasn't supposed to happen.
You don't think so?
No, I think I actually, in the commentary, I think they talk about that, and that was a mistake.
Why'd they film it that way then?
I don't know, but I think that was actually when they shot one of the... I think when they done a take, that happened, and then they were like, "Oh, that's actually better than what we had in mind."
It's so stupid and funny because he realizes he's out of bullets, has none in the gun, and then fucking tosses the knife and it fucking knocks that dude. And even like that scene is, even as a kid, I remember laughing at it. I'm like, "What the fuck?" His face.
Also, another thing I didn't know: Scott Foley, who plays Roman, he didn't know that he was the killer until he was 65% of the way, nearly through the script.
Wow, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, like they apparently did that on purpose, like to make sure that they wouldn't let it slip, or And obviously they were worried because this is his film feature debut.
Oh, was it? He was in other stuff, right? Afterwards.
Yeah, but like this was his like feature film debut, so
weird.
I think they were like secretly a little bit worried as well, like if he found out that he was like the overarching killer in this massive trilogy, that like maybe he might be like going home and be like, "Mom, I'm Ghostface."
yeah. There's some even pretty big cast on this one, to be honest. Like what's her name? Let me look it up right now. Okay. The one that plays Gail, I like that. The one that plays Gail Weathers character, and she like it was kind of obsessed with her, but like feels like she's like the better version of her almost in a fucking weird way.
There's
Parker Posey, that's her fucking name.
Roman's character as well has kind of been immortalized in the franchise. If you look at it,
I've seen a lot of people comment because I follow these like Facebook group pages about Scream, and a lot of people are like, "Don't leave out my boy Roman." When people are like favorite killers, and they'll like put up their favorite killers and shit like that. People really do like Roman.
Yeah, they do. Like he's one of the more popular like ghost face reveals, I think, after Billy and Stu in the original. But yeah, there was the whole like stab tree Hollywood horror thing. When that's been shown in the cinema club scene in Scream 4, it's like referencing that whole storyline with Roman.
Is it? What?
Yeah.
When?
Yeah. In the cinema club scene in Scream 4.
When what's his name is talking?
They're showing
the two geeks.
Yeah, they're showing stab tree Hollywood horror in the background, and that's about Roman's story.
Oh, weird. That's cool.
In Scream 5, I don't know if you remember this, Richie mentions that Roman had an accomplice. He states that there has always been two killers, which Radio Silence came out then and said like that they kind of they'll vaguely support fans' interpretations that potentially means that Angelina was part of the.
How weird.
That whole plot. Yeah.
Do we see her die? Don't we? She dies for sure. Doesn't she get thrown out of the window or into the pool or something?
Oh yeah, probably. So we'll like never know if that was ever.
Oh, I have to mention, fucking that Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith is in this film to make it because they sold it as a comedy. Essentially, to some of the shit because of the Columbine stuff, they're like trying to like underpass. Like, yeah, it's more of a funny comedy. So and you can see it throughout the film of the little jokes and stuff like that, not like gruesome kills. Because was this still rated R?
Potentially.
It should have been. Everyone should be rated R. It's fucking whack if it's not.
Yeah, it's.
Look, why is Scream 3 rated R? Someone fucking. Because it shouldn't be for what it is, what's in it. There's no like tits. There's no like really crazy kill scenes.
Also in that scene you're talking about with Jay and Silent Bob, if you look over their shoulder, there's a tourist that's on that studio tour, and he's a super recognizable dude. Let me see if I can pull.
What does he say? Like, how's Connie or whatever? Fucking Jay. It's fucking funny that they were even in that movie.
Fucking stupid. Like. You know, a lot of people give out about that and say that it's like that stuff like that made it really tacky.
Oh, it's funny because like I kind of like it for that because in fucking in Jay and Silent Bob, they go to the Scream. Oh, wait, that's Wes. Yeah, that's fucking funny. But in Jay and Silent Bob, they're on the set of Scream, and they use a monkey, and it's a joke. It's like, why are you using a fucking monkey as the killer? Or no, it's not supposed to be the monkey. The monkey is like in the costume by accident. And like it's kind of like it's just funny that this is probably why people talk about how it went so much into pop culture, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Scream. You don't like that? Have you seen Jay and Silent Bob? Right? Strikes Back.
Oh yeah, of course I have. I went to see them live and everything. Sure, when they'd done their podcast.
I went and saw them live too. I've met Jason Mewes too.
I have their autographs somewhere.
I have Jason Mewes' autograph behind me, but I want to get it signed by Kevin because Kevin's a whiny bitch, but I still love him.
Yeah, he can be actually. I didn't know actually as well that Wes Craven was in Scream 4.
I didn't know that either. That's cool.
As a doctor, he's in the hospital scene. He's like one of the doctors.
I feel like you guys will probably hear that at least a month after. I feel like we should do. I just want to get back. I want to get back into this shit. Like as soon.
I know. Yeah. Same.
So we'll have to make plans for that shit. But like, cause I don't know if you want to just get into the ending reveal because like the going around the mansion is kind of fun. This one, like I always liked this one, and because it makes you guess the cop and stuff like that too at some points.
Yeah, played by Patrick Dempsey, is it? From Grey's Anatomy. Yeah, he's in there somewhere. He was actually, do you know, he was, I wrote this down somewhere and I'm not sure where I put it now. He was hired one day before they started shooting, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, I think it was. Let me see.
I don't know. There's some, I don't know, like people like whatever people's opinions are. I actually like really enjoyed Scream 3.
Yeah, Patrick Dempsey, who played the, what is it, like Detective Kincaid or whatever he's called.
Yeah, he was supposed to be one of the killers too, I've heard.
Yeah, he was hired 24 hours before they started shooting, and he had 5 pages of heavy dialogue, and he learned it all off by heart in a day.
That's crazy. Good for him.
I know, yeah. I like his character in it as well, because they do, again, like you said, that's another red herring where it's like, I feel like it could be him.
Mm-hmm.
The way he starts acting. And I'm like, he's kind of suspicious.
They do hint at a lot of different people, which is kind of cool. We're rewatching it because it's one that I feel like I didn't go back to last year when I watched like Scream 1, 2, and then whatever other horror movies I watched around Halloween where I was like just like consumed by it. I only had so much time. But I actually liked the ending kind of reveal of like, when I was a kid, I didn't guess it 100%. When I first watched this as a kid, I did not guess it. I don't necessarily like all the mom stuff with him like fucking with her. I think it's cool for what it is, and I liked it at the time. But as I get older, I'm like, did they need that? Probably not. But it made it different, honestly. So give it that.
I always remember the bit, and I'm nearly sure it's in this one. Isn't there a bit, like they always do, like where the killer is dead, and then he comes back? Isn't there a bit where Roman is like running at her like this or some shit, and she's shooting him?
And she's head, because he gets up and
yeah, he's going like, but he's not actually doing anything. He's just like jogging on the spot.
I know.
He's like,
it is weird, but it's like the second one where Mickey fucking comes out of nowhere and he like like the last adrenaline, and he just like yells and shit like that. I'm like, does that actually happen? Is that actually a real thing? Because it seems to always happen. Like even the originals, it's very funny with him going, and then they shoot him in the fucking head. But that one is weird.
I wonder is Scott Foley still like...
I actually really like it because the whole reveal is fairly well done, and the explanation I actually do kind of like, and I remember liking as a kid. But there's some certain scenes of just like them, and you realize it's one person. I honestly, I have memories of watching that as a kid and actually really liking that, being trapped in kind of that like back-ass movie theater like hidden room, and like them trying to bang down the door. And what one chill I got when I was watching it, when she's like found something and he's like gained something, and then he fucking shoots her with the little gun. And then it's some cool, because you realize he's got a bulletproof vest on because he gets shot a bunch, which is weird because that's why they were going to tie Kincaid into it, because he has like a police issued bulletproof vest.
I think he's way more like the character of Roman is like super underrated.
And he's smart and intelligent. The way he did different kills, like blow up the whole house, because he could have blown them all up.
Because I don't think it's fair to like discredit how clever Roman's character and how well he slots into the story.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to completely discredit it because the production was so convoluted.
Yeah, I agree.
Like if you look at the facts of the story, like, and try and eliminate the fact that obviously you can tell that like this movie got kicked all over the place before it came out.
Yeah, you can tell. There's a lot of
that was the
like
biggest downfall for him. Like, and it must be, I don't know, like what his opinions are on it, but I know I would be pissed like that if I knew like this could have been like a really, really, really badass ending to a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could have potentially been one of the only movie trilogies or horror trilogies especially that had 3 equally as good entries.
Yeah.
And just left it at that, and it was all encapsulated in one story, and it was just left alone.
I know. I'm like, at the same time, I like the new ones. I actually genuinely like all of them. So it's like, how do we do that? Or they revive it as something different, but still keep Ghostface and stuff like that, right? But like, it could have been done slightly better. I do agree. One thing I do like, actually, he is one, yeah, really, almost close to it. One of the only characters that keeps on the costume throughout the whole ending.
And I love that.
So do I. I just thought about that because I was like, what is different about that scene that I liked as a kid? And it's that he has the Ghostface costume on the whole time. They're like fighting and stabbing each other and shooting each other. And it's just cool. I don't know. I really like it. I'm not going to give my whole breakdown. I think we'll leave that on a kind of, leave that hanging because I'm not going to go through my favorite, like my list, basically what I may think now because I keep switching and don't really know. But is there anything you have to add about 3? Because I liked it as a kid.
I still like it as much. I think I feel like that trilogy is like, for me, one of the most perfect stories, contained within 3 parts.
Yeah, I agree.
That to me will always be like the original story.
Yeah,
I'm not knocking the newer ones because obviously we're going to do a whole deep dive as well on those new ones. But I definitely feel like for me, this is always that story will always be something I'll revisit. Yeah, it's a bit more fucking out there and quirky and kind of goofy than the rest. I kind of
like it though.
Yeah, I kind of like if you're willing to. I don't know if you're willing to kind of accept that for what it is, and I think as a horror fan as well, like there's a certain degree of that, like you have to
sacrifice some.
Yeah, like and there's always going to be like how many horror movies do we like that are just fucking bizarre?
Yeah.
And like goofy and like stupid and just like don't even make sense.
I love Friday the 13th, number 5 especially.
Yeah, and it's like and I'm not, and I love Friday the 13th, and I'm not knocking it, but like if you were to like sit down and analyze it, yeah, of course it's fucking goofy and weird and kooky. Like that's what I hate about when like film critics sit down, especially what's his name, Robert Ebert or whatever. Like
I know.
And Scream.
Why do they have because they went to school for a while, Like,
yeah, I think it was Scream and Scream 2 are the only slasher movies I think that he's ever given a positive review.
It's fucking weird. Well, I don't trust his fucking opinion either.
And I'm like, well, this is the thing, like, but it's like, there you go, like you're getting, critics and people to review these movies that have no interest or care. Mm-hmm. So they're judging them based off of some like, I don't know, college fucking like template.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, does it meet these requirements? It's like, of course it fucking doesn't. It's Scream 3. How the fuck is it going to meet those templates?
I know. There's Ghostface. He's at your door.
That's never going to happen.
It is. I actually like. I don't know. I really like this shit. Like all 3 of these movies will always have a very special place in my heart. I've loved these movies since I was like 10, and always rewatch them. Same. And that's why I think that, I hope that this does get buzz, and people enjoy this, and you're not going to see people do almost fucking, 3.5 hours on a Scream trilogy and getting into the nitty gritty stuff like we've done. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed watching docs about this. Now I want the Blu-ray so I can watch even more the real documentaries that you can't find like on YouTube and stuff like that. But these are very close to my heart. I love these movies. I dressed up like Ghostface when I was 8 years old. I was very young.
I can't lie. I dressed up as Ghostface for every Halloween for about fucking 8 years.
I told you. Remember when you? It's like remember when you got really drunk on the Halloween live? When I was talking about how when I was 10, my mom set up. I had a birthday party, okay, and 10 years old, and we made the whole garage scary, and the whole plan was there was 10 boys and I think 10 girls, all my friends from like school, or something like that. And the boys came first. They're all laying in the garage. Like one had like a heart coming out of his chest with a bloody shirt. We took old pizza, was disgusting. It made the garage smell like shit, and put like mustard and ketchup on it, and it reeked. And then there was someone like missing a foot beside this like gross pizza box. One of my friends, and my mom did all the makeup and shit. And one of my friends was like hanging there and like had someone had their throat slit. And then the girl, we kind of lure them in there, and my mom does, and then they look around because was just like a fucking garage, and they're like kind of walking through it a bit, and they're all freaking out. And then I was sitting in the corner in a Ghostface costume, and then turned around and then started walking towards them. I had big boots on and shit, and they freaked out. This is how long I've loved these movies. As I was 10 years old, dressing up like it for my birthday, and we had like a cake with like gummy worms on it, looked like a graveyard. It's great.
I feel like so many people had that, like those kind of memories.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to apologize for my dog downstairs. There's some idiot in my house who's like annoying the dog, and she's shouting under. Yeah, like I Ghostface for me, I think without even realizing, was like such a big part of my movie experience, and still is. Like I said, I dressed up as fucking, or as I used to call it when I was young, Scream. I'm dressing up as Scream.
That's what I used to say too. I never called him Ghostface. I realized that till I was like in my teenage years.
And like I dressed up as him, I think, like every year, and it was like different variations. Like one year, like say I would wear just like a plain mask like that, and then there was like a glow in the dark one came out like the following Halloween. Then I had that shitty one with the heart. I
definitely had that one 1,000%, and I used to like just pump all the blood through
like
it.
Everyone on the planet had that shit.
I know, so fun. And I just like this. I don't know. These movies make me think back to why I fell in love with horror movies. Like Freddy Krueger was one reason, but also this, where it was kind of quirky. There was comedy to it. It's funny. Keeps you kind of guessing. Like I like those. I love campy horror movies more than anything. Going back, I'm not super impressed by Puppet Master because I've been watching those. Some of them are better than others, but. You know, because there's a game out that will go on Patreon, Stranger Podcast, of me and Anton playing it for a bit. But, you know, that there's some movies I'm like, yeah, I love them. But, you know, this one is, you know, I rate every one 10 out of 10 in my opinion, especially the first three. To me, like, you know, if I really wanted to, like, really rate them, it would probably be like the first one's 10 out of 10, and then maybe the second one's like 9.5, and the third one's like an 8.5, something like that, right? Like rank them all fairly high. I really do enjoy them.
Yeah, same as.
I hope everyone enjoyed this.
I'm looking forward to jumping in. This was like way longer, I think, than we thought.
I know, which I don't mind.
Yeah, I feel like it's good. I feel like it's necessary for something like this as well. It's very hard to like, because it's not just another franchise or another series. Like, it's fucking Scream and Ghostface.
I know.
So I think it deserves that.
I feel like talking about like Jimmy Savile for 4 hours is like draining and like on your mind and heavy. Because if you guys just wait, that's.
And you know what's mad, right? I want to, as soon as we're finished recording, I feel like I want to go straight away and dive into number 4.
I know.
Listen to all the commentaries, listen to all the interviews, get all.
I'm not sick of this at all.
The next one. Yeah, I'm excited for the next part. So obviously, in the next deep dive we do, it will cover. Obviously, I know they're not part of necessarily a trilogy, but we'll look at number 4, 5, and 6. And then maybe towards the end of that deep dive, we might talk about like our thoughts on
what 7 could be, which I didn't even know was coming. I didn't even know they're going to do a 7,
or where the franchise may potentially go after that, or what happens. Or
I feel like that one might be equally as long, if not. So we'll have to plan a day where we have a lot of time, because I want to make sure that we do this justice and people can listen back to this. And you know, I was just peering through other kind of shows to see what else is kind of out there. You know, during getting prepped up and ready for these. And I think it's a little different. Me and Aaron genuinely like have a big love for these movies. So I do think that people that really love these and the fans, though, I think they'll really enjoy this one. I would love that bust.
Yeah, for sure.
The Scream bust with the knife. Oh, I know. Man, that'd be sick.
I thought about that and I was like, right, I wonder could you buy that knife and then just have a mask and like makeup a display,
I'm
something
sure.
like that.
You could, 100%. That'd be cool. I might fucking develop that one day.
I don't know if you can see there's a mask on its own actually. It's like someone holding
the
it
green
in
one.
No, it's like up towards the top. This one here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That one there, I think that's the 25th anniversary mask from last year.
Oh, that's fucking cool.
See the way it has like the hood attached or whatever.
I kind of like that. That's sick.
Yeah, Same.
Weird. I'm
It's, like,
definitely
really
getting the
cool.
full costume of this. I'm gonna make that happen when.
The costume has the same material that has that like speckled.
I feel like I would need that mask for it to go, because like the one I have the head would be different. It's like clothy.
Well, you get the mask like with the one I have. You do get that mask, that piece when it all fits together. It looks fine, but like it's just annoying that it's just the plastic part.
I feel like if you had the hood on, it wouldn't really matter.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. Like once you pull the hood up, you don't notice. But yeah, if you've gotten this far, we appreciate it. Make sure to keep an eye on both of our socials, I guess, for updates on the next deep dive. And reach out to us on social or through email and let us know, your thoughts.
Yeah, leave a review, a good review.
Anything that you guys have heard about, potentially ideas for these films, or maybe your favorite Ghostface reveal or something like that.
And we'll post it or something like that, especially on your page.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Or if anybody has
idea.
any cool collections or any cool props or memorabilia or masks
shit.
or anything like that are unique, send them to us and we'll share them on our socials and stuff.
And we're hoping to like grow this in both of our shows fairly big, and maybe one day, the dream is to make a living off this stuff. But like there's things I would love to do, and some stuff like talking to Skeet Ulrich or some of these people, and if there's one day we bring it up, we could talk to David Arquette, because he seems pretty weird and open to like different stuff, and kind of like an outgoing guy that he went on ridiculousness and just seemed like a fun dude. So I would love to eventually be able to achieve these things. So even like obviously your big dream is Rob Zombie, but I feel like if we push at this, I think that this will gain traction and people will understand what we're going for on both of our shows.
100%. Yeah, so
I love this. This was some of the funnest horror stuff that I think we've done so far.
Yeah, I think so.
Loved
I think
it.
this might be something that we could do going forward, stuff that we're really passionate about, and have like a more deep dive on them. I don't have any outro, to be honest with you. I didn't think of anything cool or quirky to say. I don't know if you have it or if you have a cool soundbite that we can just end this whole thing on.
Yeah, let's just do the OG.
You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish, understand? Yeah.
And then everybody think about, maybe just think about
It's called Guess How I'm Gonna Die!
Guess how you're gonna die in life. Think about that. We'll end it on that. Do you think you're gonna get stabbed by a man in a face mask, or are you probably gonna have a heart attack?
I would prefer to have I'd be dead, but I'd prefer to have the story of getting killed by someone in a ghost face mask. But yeah, I appreciate everyone listening. All the links will be down below wherever you're listening to this, watching it. Obviously, if you've listened to any of the audio version, you should go and check out the video format. I'm going to start posting all of our video content that we've done over the last fucking year that I haven't posted yet. Very, very soon, within the next week. And we'll see you in the next deep dive for Scream 4, 5, and 6.
Stab, stab, stab.